Hello, Eric. Hello, Neo.
Hello,
How are you both?
Katrina. How are you from there in jolly old England, as we used to say?
Jolly old England is very mild today.
And you,
How's
Neil, how you doing up there, the north of me? Well, I guess he stepped out for a moment, but I'm sure he's saying hello.
Yeah, no, how's it going? Just had
Yeah,
to
fine,
step
fine.
out for a minute.
Everything's well.
Yep.
So, this show, it's a very interesting one. There's probably people who know about this, but I don't know if you both agree. I think that there's so many who read the book. There are probably people who dissect the book, The Ultimate Evil, as it was first subtitled. And I think the first subtitle is appropriate to what we're doing today, as opposed to the latter subtitle, An Investigation of America's Most Dangerous Satanic Cult with New Evidence Linking Charles Manson and Son of Sam. It really goes well with the chapter we're covering. And as we spoke about it, it's actually Mr. Maury Terry's, as I was reading on my own, and then I spoke to you, introduction into a field that he knew nothing about, the occult and organizations having to do with the occult.
so? This chapter we're going to be talking about today is from the Ultimate Evil. Am I correct?
That's right. That's why I gave the full title and the importance of for this chapter, the original subtitle.
What stood out to you about this? These paragraphs, this topic we're going to talk about today.
Well, what stood out to me is how eventually, historically, I think it affected, the cause and effect affected Maury Terry of entering into a field that should have been entered into, but I don't think he had a total type grasp of it, and it eventually overwhelmed him. And I had thought that years and years later, not in 1987, but just these years, that it overwhelmed him. And the confirmation of that he was overwhelmed with what he found that touched upon the truth, but couldn't totally grasp it and put it together coherently and got lost. And I'm not putting the man down. It's a very dark area and a very shocking area even. The overwhelming was even mentioned in words synonymous to that by New York Police Department homicide detective Hank Chinotti, and in I think it's 2017, Peter Lavenda saying that to Mr. Sean Stone about how he, I'm paraphrasing, was overwhelmed. It just was outside of his reach. He needed better assistance. And I'm curious about this man who becomes a major contributor to his research and who stands out as the guest protagonist in this chapter. I believe it's chapter 9, The Process, or as they would say, The Process. Larry Ziegel, whom I looked up 3 years ago. I tried to find him. I couldn't find him. That's his real name. Maury does not have an asterisk giving a false name. And he appears eventually in this book on not in the beginning, because in this chapter he's going into he's talking about basically the animal sacrificing, dead German shepherds.
Who is this? Who is this guy?
Well, here's how he introduces him. He said he doesn't tell us how he meets that, but he's talking about black mass, human sacrifice, and animals, blood drunk infertility rites, cats and dogs, and so forth. And then he says, with this sentence, he introduces him like this: It is that element that is of concern in this narrative. All that I've told you he was looking into, right? Hardcore Satanist covens active today have carried those practices into the 1980s. So then he states, I raised the subject of the dead German shepherds with Larry Ziegel, he of the Woodlawn Cemetery caper, while visiting his home in mid-December. We're not told where the home is, but it's his real name. And then he doesn't say one who investigated Woodlawn Cemetery. He uses the word caper. Now, caper has a specific meaning. You know, it's like a jewel heist. Perhaps something happened at Woodlawn Cemetery.
Well, didn't David have a book in his apartment on Woodlawn Cemetery?
I believe he might have. Yes, he might have.
Is that what maybe they were referring to?
That's probably what he's referring to. But the thing that throws me is using the word caper. Caper is you know, anybody who likes crime, or you might see a film and they say, well, there's these guys, they're going to be pulling off a caper. It's you know, it's you know, something that is kind of it is something illicit, and it, you know, so I'm curious why he uses that term, but there was something, he's probably using it meaning something illicit took place, you know, something that
have you only just like why has this clicked in your mind recently about this Larry Siegel? What did you read? Were you rereading The Ultimate Evil? Like, did you miss something?
I reread The Ultimate Evil last year out loud to Irena. Subsequent to reading for the first time, I had the book for about 2 or 3 years. Chaos, Charles Manson, CIA and the Secret History of the 60s by Messrs. Tom O'Neill and Dan Piperbring. So I went right into The Ultimate Evil, but the second edition, which has an introduction, which this one here doesn't. And so there was a kind of coherency, but still what made me at the back of my mind go to it. In fact, that's a good question you asked. I don't even know why. It was intuitive. I just picked it up and I wanted to see about this. I wanted to intuitively, I just was directed to this chapter, I suppose, because of all the controversy about the Carr brothers and what David Berkowitz brought up with Michael Caparelli, and then what he brought up with Frank De Gennaro, who's been visiting him, I think, since the 1990s, where despite the different stories told about his involvement, the occult comes up and plays a prominent role. And so I thought, let me go back to this Larry Ziegel. Why you laughing?
Go ahead, Eric. Don't worry about it.
So I thought of going back to Larry Ziegel and trying to see exactly, meticulously, what took place. But what is evident from this chapter is that Terry is stimulated by this man.
But pull back a second. This man, who is he? I asked you this a minute ago. Who is this?
He told me, Terry states that that he was a well-informed researcher and professional writer. I can't find the man anywhere. And he'd offered to spend some time checking into the occult and was ready with an opinion. Now that's important, with an opinion. And it is, and that's all I know. I can't find anything on him. Now I don't, you know.
Has anyone ever spoken to him?
Not that I know of.
He's not in anyone's files, never spoken to anyone. And this guy is supposed to be what? You're going to read this conversation, correct? You're going to read a conversation between the two more. Right. So what is this guy about? What is he?
Well, he states that he's a well-informed researcher and professional writer. And he offered.
For who? Writer for who?
That's what I can't find. I can't find anything, and Maury Terry doesn't supply that information.
Is there a possibility this guy's not real, or maybe it's a
Yeah.
different used name?
Yeah, we
No,
talked about this earlier.
no. I would say that he definitely is real because there's too much here, and if he's not real, then Maury Terry should get a Tony Award
Well,
for a two-man show play.
Eric, may I just add, I read through this chapter earlier, and this guy seems to know exactly what Maury wanted to discuss.
Well,
You know?
well,
I found that strange. I'm not going to lie.
Well, is it that Maury already had this on his mind, or did this guy open up his mind to it?
Well, this guy just had all the information that Maury needed.
No, but wait. You're right, Neo. He had it on his mind. Terry says he'd offered to spend some time checking into the occult and was ready with an opinion. So obviously, Terry knew of him as a researcher and professional writer. So it's not as if, it would be too simplistic to say that Terry is feeding him things, because if the man is that professional.
Well, we'll hear the conversation and maybe we'll be able to decide.
Yeah. But the thing is that this is where Terry is introduced to the process.
That angle of his research you're saying is being introduced to him here.
Yes, because after he tells us who this man is, offer an opinion. Now that's an important word, not to offer facts, to give an opinion. So Larry Ziegel asks him, "You've heard of the process, right?" Well, the process kept German shepherds. And Terry questions the process. The process, I've only heard a little about them. But we want someone who killed German shepherds, not kept them. So
Eric, I thought you were starting on page 140, my friend.
What do you
as indicated?
Well, I'm starting with Larry Siegel.
All right, so you're going to start at the beginning of the chapter, or where?
No, I'm in the middle of the chapter where Larry Siegel comes in.
Yeah.
To go from the beginning of the chapter is something we all know. Descriptions of animals being sacrificed, black masses, Satanism, and so forth.
So where am I showing what page number, Eric?
Well, I have mine on a Microsoft Word. The pages are not exactly. It's either 140 or 139. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. As indicated, you were going to start from there.
Yeah, but we don't have to read that unless you want me to read it, or you want to read it before we get to Siegel. Maybe it might be a good introduction.
As indicated, Eric, why don't you read it, my friend?
All right. As indicated, the preponderance of these are relatively harmless. Purists point out that a murderous devil cult should not be confused with the numerous benign covens which dot the landscape of the United States. Now, that's very true. People who get together in a church of Satan or to worship the devil are not necessarily homicidal maniacs or kill anyone, including animals. A lot don't like to hear that, but it's true. So he goes on to say, to an extent, that admonition is accurate. Not everyone who smokes marijuana advances to heroin addiction, nor does every social drinker become an alcoholic. But just as addicts are initiated on pot and alcoholics emerge from the cocktail party set, hardcore Satanists frequently earn their stripes in the lower ranks of occult curiosity or white witchcraft. Now, I know nothing of white witchcraft. I think white witchcraft might be these people in the New Age, So witchcraft per se is not illegal. And most covens ostensibly operate within the law. That's just what I had said about them. There has been an ambitious public relations effort undertaken in recent years to present witchcraft in an acceptable light. But the fact remains that while some groups claim to celebrate nature, Many others pay homage to Satan. That is their tradition and they honor it. Now, you would find this type of culture centered around the Warlock shop, which then became the magical child of Ed Buczynski and Herman Slater. And as Lady Rhea had said she's a witch and a feminist, and she was married, had a child, and then she made a sexual journey from being bisexual to lesbian. She had said to Herman Slater, she said on film, I told him, if there's anything satanic here, I'm getting the hell out. I'm out that door. So Terry is being very exact about, you can't say all these people are murderous, or that they're guilty of this crime and that crime. So this is very curious. I think the both of you will agree with me. It tends to paint right here. There's a different picture of Maury Terry, of where you would never think that he's going to immediately make simple similarities and allegations, because he's being very fair-minded. And, so he goes on to say a typical coven consists of 13 members, but that number varies often. The group will meet regularly, usually at the full moon. These gatherings are known as sabbats. Several times each year, according to witchcraft calendars, grand sabbats, major festivals, are celebrated. Grand sabbats occur, for example, on All Hallows Eve, October 31st, and on April 30th, Walpurgis Night. So, for the purpose of blasphemy, some major holidays coincide with important Roman Catholic holy days. Others mark the dates of old pagan festivals. So, as mentioned, covens pay homage to Satan, just as traditional religions honor God. Accordingly, in defense of the Catholic Church, the concept of the Black Mass evolved during the Middle Ages. In the Black Mass, satanic prayers were substituted for those contained in the Catholic service. The Lord's Prayer was recited backwards, crosses were inverted, black vestments were worn, chalices and hosts stolen from churches were used in the rituals. Not far from where I am here is Sunnyside, Queens. They have what they call a Gnostic Mass, and it's a black Mass. And I asked one of the heads of the branches of the OTO, which you both know about, the Ordo Templi Orientis, which had been taken over by Aleister Crowley. I said, I would like to observe that Mass. And he said, yes, but you are obliged to take our communion. And he said to me, his name was Bill. I remember his name, Bill something. I will remember him. He said, but you have to take the host. And I says, well, what is the host? And he says, well, it's made with bone, with some meal and juice, and also there's menstrual blood. So, I'm not going to have anything to do with that. And there's like another chap I knew went to one of these masses out in Austin, Texas. In Austin, there was a large gathering there, may still be. And he suddenly became a repulsive individual to me over the telephone, because he was saying, well, then we go up ceremonially and there is a woman lying naked in a coffin, and you do what you want to her, and so did I. He repulsed me, A lot of these people who meet like this, I don't know if you ever heard the name of Robert Zola. He was from New York. He was German-Irish. His family was Lutheran and Catholic, but he was a major, major astrologer, one of the top. And he told me when I first met him way uptown in Manhattan, we had a long chat at an elegant coffee bar. He said to me, a lot of these people that meet like this, they're not into any type of sacrifice, any type of animal ritual. He says they sometimes go to meet for kinky sex.
Well, crazy times, Eric.
Yeah. So, and then of course, Maury Terry goes into that they use in the real black mass: feces, urine, vomit, animal blood, and of course, as I've told you, Bill, I'll get his name, told me there's menstrual blood in the communion. And I remember him saying to me, "Oh, my daughter's already 4 or 5, and she's had her first communion." This was at a seminar on the occult and the cinema at Princeton University. And Terry goes into drinking the blood of sacrificed dogs and cats. And I guess what led me into this is what David Berkowitz says to Dr. Caparelli, of him loving dogs but actually seeing these sacrifices in Monster Mirror.
So this Larry Siegel character, I mean, where does he get to the part where he's ringing bells with Maury?
Where they encounter each other?
Yeah.
Well, after Maury gives this introduction of what is, and it's a good introduction in this chapter. He's not saying everybody is evil who gets involved in these things.
So where does he start referring to, the 22 disciples of hell and David?
It goes on. Larry Siegel, obviously, he's searching for somebody.
Right.
It's obvious that Maury Terry is searching for someone to give him information. Larry was only 27 years of age. Right. And he claims he's a well-informed researcher and professional writer. And he offers Maury Terry time, checking into the occult, and was ready for an opinion. Now, I think the checking into the occult was also for him to confirm what was occult and what wasn't, that Maury Terry might have come across. And I think yeah.
I'm just going to skip all this and try and get down to the, where it gets juicy.
Okay, well.
I raised the subject of dead German shepherds with Larry Siegel, he of Woodlawn Cemetery Caper, while visiting his home in mid-December. Larry, 27, was a well-informed researcher and professional writer.
Yeah, that's what I've read twice to try.
He'd offered to spend some time checking into the occult and was ready with an opinion.
Right.
You've heard of the process, right? Well, the process kept German shepherds.
And Terry asked the question, the process? I've only heard a little about them. And then he states, but we want someone who killed German shepherds and not kept them. So he does not originally say that the process was involved to sacrifice German shepherds or anything like that. And somewhere else, Maury Terry does say, if not the process, not in this chapter, but elsewhere in the book, I remember him saying that there could have been an offshoot of them that was involved. But he says there could have been in the book. He doesn't say there definitely was. And Larry Siegel says, you've got to remember that cults split up and changed their names. They're as varied as other religions. They worship one deity, but they do it under different names and practices. And Maury Terry says, like the Great Schism in the Catholic Church, or like the dozens of Protestant sects that started really when Martin Luther nailed his complaints to that door, he asks. And Larry says, yes. And he says, that's the basic idea. They keep what they like, discard what they don't like, and sometimes adapt a practice that's just the opposite of the parent groups. Now, one thing here that's interesting historically, Rena and Neo, is that here you have an exact opposite of what Berkowitz tells Caparelli. Berkowitz actually states to Caparelli that the process church of the final judgment is everything that here they're saying it wasn't. So that's quite an interesting contrast. So following Larry's reasoning, Terry asks if they might be looking for a process splinter group. Instead of keeping dogs, was killing them as an act of defiance or a sign of independence. And Larry says that could make sense. And he bases it on that these Satan cults are religious too, perverse and sick, but still religions. So perverse and sick doesn't necessarily mean homicide. If either of you have something to say, please interject.
No, go ahead.
So
this is all you.
Yeah. So Terry then says to Siegel, yeah. And in that context, since shepherds are a strong breed, they might also represent a higher or more pure form of sacrifice, like the offering of the Virgin in pagan days. And Larry Siegel adds, they're also known as police dogs, emphasizing that satanic cults, like organized religions, begged and borrowed ideas from other sources. So there might not be a blueprint, it might be a mixed bag of philosophies. And just what do you know about the process? And Terry says, I'm just getting my feet well in all of this, explaining that I knew the group had been in California and a few other United States locales after emigrating from England in the 1960s. I told Larry that the cult was barely more than a name to me. So here is where Terry is being drawn in.
Well, it's funny. This guy knows about the process. He knows about German shepherds. He seems to be knowing a lot that Maury ends up, defining this whole case around.
Well,
is it a coincidence?
No, because the Process Church of the Final Judgment was well known. I had a friend, an actor friend. I have an actor friend. And he says, oh, I remember them. They were down in the village wearing these capes and cloaks, kind of makeshift in their own way, monks or priest uniforms. They used to be in the village. And the same thing with a German lady who, Persephone. She says, oh, I remember in Cologne, the process, they would walk around and they would be giving out their literature and everything. So they were not, in other words, they were out there, they were visible, but they did not take on this specter of mystery, of possibly being dark and
right. When you look into the process, is there anything in what they're about or what they do that would make you think they would want Berkowitz to do what he did?
I can't find that. No.
Right.
There's no way. I can't find anything there. Because
yeah. Go on now.
See, I don't connect dots.
I mean, can I just say, I can't imagine the Process Church or a splinter group of the Process recruiting someone like David Berkowitz and these group of criminals to go out and carry out a string of attacks on New York City. They're all criminals, drug addicts. How are they going to trust these people, for one?
So aside from that, though, Eric, like, are they bad? Is this process organization bad? Well, would they want this to happen in order for what they believe in to?
I have to say, and I know that people who are religiously orthodox are going to come after me, and others are going to come after me. I can't, their theology is not mine, okay? It's a hodgepodge mixture of Jesus Christ, our Lord, Lucifer, and they might distinguish Lucifer from Satan. I can't say. I'm not going to point a guilt finger at them. Theologically, they're not my theology. We get this, people are led to believe this, although not factually by either Terry or Ed Sanders, but the most blatant person who states that they were created to create havoc, anarchy, and to do that, there would be like maybe a subgroup or another group to go out and kill these murders, is Berkowitz. He's the only one I have come across to say that. He's the only one. I can't say it.
What do you mean? What do you mean Berkowitz is the only one to say? Say what, Eric? The Process Church?
Is exactly what Neo's asking. Was the Process Church satanic, out there to commit murder, to commit mayhem, and so forth and so on?
I found a clip of David saying all he knew about the process was literature he'd read on them.
Okay, but that gets back to my timeline of Berkowitz changing stories. Because then when he's speaking on the audio tape to Caparelli, which is transcribed in Monster Mirror, he's saying the opposite. He's saying that the children were part of a larger group.
So you got the 22 disciples of hell, you got the children, you got the process. I mean, what is going on here?
Well,
who is this cult? How many are there? What is their name?
Yeah. And then maybe as we go on, who gave Terry this whole thing? You see, it's as if, well, I don't want to say it right now. And so
So this guy here, Larry, is essentially putting thoughts into Maury's head that weren't there before.
No, I don't see him putting thoughts into Maury's head.
He's giving him ideas, Eric.
He's filling them in on information.
No,
Yeah.
Of what Maury's looking for, it looks like.
Yeah, he's giving him information. Now, I think the reason why Maury accepted this man's offer, remember, he offered to talk to Terry. I think the reason why is because we already have one of the letters. I don't know if it's the Borelli letter or the Breslin letter, or maybe both by this time. So when
yeah, you definitely do.
And so what he has, Terry says to Larry Siegel, the cult was barely more than a name to me. No, he's telling us that. And Siegel says, a dangerous name. And then he said, Larry gave me an apprehensive look. And Terry states, this already involves mass murder, I reminded him. It's already in that league. And Siegel says, but we're not. If all this is true, it could get pretty damn unnerving before it's finished. And Terry says, what are you saying? And Siegel says, I'm saying that we're off on this great adventure here, but these people think nothing about blowing heads off. Larry paused and shook his head. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Now, where would he get that from? Blowing people's heads off? Well, where's that come from?
But wait, look at this. He says, I don't know what I'm trying to say. He states that after that, Larry. Now, Siegel. So, well, I guess because of Terry investigating the son of Sam. But is he referring also to something else? I don't know. But then this man it's obvious that this guy, he says he gives Terry an apprehensive look, and then he states what he states, and then he says, I don't know what I'm trying to say, after he says they're blowing people's heads off. Something is unnerving the guy. And then Terry writes in the narrative, I could see he was uncomfortable with the course the conversation was taking. So I narrowed the discussion to the reason we had convened this December Saturday, 5 days after the sleeping Berkowitz photos appeared. So Berkowitz is already in jail. And he's talking about the photographs that Jim Matiga had the guard take. So, yeah. So it's here we are. Already Berkowitz is arrested. And it seems that Terry was not really profoundly knowledgeable or had some knowledge of the occult, but he needed somebody with more knowledge than him, a good researcher. But why this man suddenly is nervous and says, I don't know what I'm trying to say. And he's all nervous and shaken. So he goes on and he says, I'd gone through about a dozen books on witchcraft and the occult and found some close parallels to the Sam letters. Terry says, take the Breslin and Borelli notes from a folder. I spread them out on the dining room table. Larry produced a set of notes and a stack of occult books. The information we'd uncovered, it turned out, was nearly identical. When we finished comparing the data, we were convinced satanic references peppered the letters.
Right. Can I just point something out here?
Mm-hmm.
Beelzebub, Behemoth, both are in what book, Eric?
Beelzebub, that's another name.
Beelzebub and Behemoth are both in the Bible.
Right. They're in the Holy Bible.
So why are they automatically jumping to he's reading occult books instead of reading a Bible, which a Bible was found in his apartment? How does this person know that David's up on the occult and occult knowledge when all we have in those letters is him saying Beelzebub and Behemoth? So they're jumping to conclusions here, aren't they?
Well, they don't mention Berkowitz here. They're talking about the letters.
Yeah, and the Breslin and Borelli.
Right.
Behemoth, Beelzebub. That's what they're,
Right. Well, the interesting thing is that you're right, because now many years later, your question goes back to them 50 years ago almost. And Maury says a crazy guy who imagines demons is a far cry from somebody who's up on occult terminology. Now that's an interesting statement. He's actually exculpating David Berkowitz. He's saying he imagines demons, but he's trying to he's alluding in that sentence that somebody else was up on occult terminology.
But you could also say, Eric, that David learned about all this in Louisville, Kentucky. He learned about demons there. He probably learned about Behemoth and Beelzebub.
Oh, yeah.
Maury wasn't looking at this practically, was he? He was jumping to conclusions very early on.
Well, I don't think he's jumping to conclusions. Neither do I. And I do think he's being practical, but it's like he's...
Occult terminology. Where do they get that from? In those two letters, where do you... I mean, I know I may have seen it back in the day, and, I see it a lot clearer now. Everything seems to come from the Bible. Neo, would you agree with me here?
Yeah, I do. He could have learned. Again, you're just showing another angle where he could have learned this stuff, and automatically, because he's referring to it, they're thinking of the Satan angle of it. When in actuality, yeah, you could be right. He learned a lot of this stuff in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
But then, I'm not going contrary to anything. I agree with the both of you. But then historically, I go back to the book on Caparelli in the section of the cult, where Berkowitz said he had even before he was in the military, I believe. No, after the military, he had an interest in the occult, and he meets two men who are given the names Paul and Matt, whom I'm told he met the Carr brothers, and they took him to a party, and they were well up on the occult, and they knew a lot more than he did.
Yep.
So that's Berkowitz saying this.
But Berkowitz also said that William Menzer stood up a party and said he killed Alice Perry. We know that's a lie. So how do we know John and Michael Carr?
Well, that's the whole point. That's the point of my timeline. The stories change with him.
Yeah.
Back and forth, back and forth. So when you look at the psychology at work with Berkowitz, and maybe others involved with him, in my opinion, but when you look at the psychology, let's stay with Berkowitz alone. With his psychology, you could see how Terry maybe was confused and was scratching and looking for answers. It's almost as if subconsciously he's tapping into a guy who plays with you.
Or he's seeing things that aren't there.
Yeah. Now, so he talks about occult terminology, and Larry says, yeah, whoever did these letters knows a lot about Satanism and witchcraft, but couldn't that have been Berkowitz just reading up on this stuff like we did? Now, that's an interesting question. Could he have just
like the Bible?
Right. Couldn't he?
But I see those letters differently.
How do you see them, Neil?
Well, the Borelli letter, he's giving you the son of Sam, which is Harvey, and he's just being creepy. And then in the second letter, it's kind of a little taxi driver-ish. If you go to that part in the movie, how he writes the letter, and he leaves you clues that we know what mean now, not 22 Disciples of Hell, where that's where you're adding the Satan to the Breslin a little bit. So I think they want to see Satan connections to these letters when there's not really. It's a lot of rambling from a nut.
So he, Berkowitz, Larry Siegel said he could have just probably read up on this stuff. So Terry says it could have been. But if that was so, we'd have to forget about the handwriting problems. Now, remember, there was the handwriting expert, one of the world's foremost, that Terry went to. I looked up the guy, and he was an expert.
Well, he wasn't that much of an expert, Eric, because those two letters from the same person.
Well, according to you.
Right, is that he writes that in his book, Maury, telling you that this guy told him, who's supposed to be an expert, that the letters were written by two different people.
I mean, if you go into that man's background.
Which everybody thought for so long.
Yeah.
Okay? There wasn't really anybody you could find that thought.
Let me tell you something. If Maury Terry goes to an expert handwriter, right? What is he supposed to say? You don't know what you're talking about.
You go to 2 or 3 and then form your conclusion, not the first one you find and then take his word for it.
Well, it's not as if he just bumped into the guy. I mean, if you look at that guy's history, he even analyzed ancient Shakespearean texts.
Well, he didn't do a very good job. I'm just saying.
And I'm pretty sure the police
according
really knew this was written by
Neo held them
he admitted it to them, so it didn't leave question for them because he admitted to them that he wrote both of them. So the police from the beginning wasn't questioning.
See, I don't see collectivity writing the letters. Maybe somebody else was present, maybe, but I see just one person who's quite erudite and clever doing the letters.
But we know he liked to write letters, Eric.
Yeah, in so many different ways too.
Yeah, so
like 4 or 5 different styles.
And then after he says the composite sketches, the Moscovitz scene, John Carr, and the dead Sheps.
So what does he mean there? The Moskowitz scene. What does that mean?
I don't know. Is it supposed to be referring to a snuff film being shot? I don't know.
John Carr and the dead Sheps. The dead Sheps where? In the park?
I suppose so. I wouldn't know how to put John Carr together with dead shepherds.
No, neither will I.
Shepherds. You see what I mean? I have to be fair. Now, you see, if I was Larry, of course, there was no tape recording of this conversation or anything. But if I was, you people know me, I would have said to him, well, what do you mean by the Moscovitz scene? And I would have said, well, tell me, Maury, was John Carr associated with dead German shepherds? You see what I mean? I would have asked those questions. But instead, Larry sat back in his chair. Then I think there's a cult involved.
Now, that's interesting. How has he formed that conclusion just by talking to Maury for this short period of time?
Right.
With very little detail.
That's right. That's right. That's
why I think there's a cult involved.
Yeah, that's why I said before I would have asked these questions. Because if the man is, remember, he's introduced as a researcher and a well-informed writer.
Yeah.
And Terry says to him, are you sure? And Siegel says, as sure as anyone can be with what we have to work with up until now.
Look at what?
And
what are they working with? I don't get it. What are they working with?
Well, based upon the dialogue reported in the book, there are many questions to ask, and there's a lot more that one would like. So Terry says to him, what kind of cult? And Siegel says, not some hocus pocus group of witches, but something like the process or those Satanists who dug up that British cemetery a few years ago and drove stakes through corpses' hearts. So he says, now he doesn't say it is the process church of the final judgment. He's saying that they have a similar structure and system. Then Terry says, well, I think we've got a cult here too, in some form or another. but we have no proof at all. Zip. So that's Maury Terry saying that. We have no proof at all. Zip. The clues are all over the lot, but we'd get destroyed by the cops if we tried to push this now. And I'm sure the Post, the New York Post, wouldn't go for it either. So he continues with the narrative. We also didn't know if the suspected cult planned the 44 caliber attacks with all its members involved, or if it only served as a catalyst or an inspiration for Berkowitz and someone else, like John Carr, to do the shootings. Now, this is interesting because that's alluded to by Berkowitz, that Berkowitz, in the Caparelli book, it seems that he is inspired by the group he knows.
Right. That's what Maury's stuff makes you feel like. You know, when you're looking at all this and you're using Maury's work, there comes a time, and I felt it, that you feel Berkowitz was influenced by John Carr, because you got Maury going out and finding some stuff on John Carr, which makes him, you know, pair this up with the satanic stuff.
Well, they're saying also John Carr.
But I'm just saying, in Maury's work, you start to feel bad for Berkowitz if you look at this a certain way while you're looking, because you feel that like the influence of what John Carr was doing to him. I felt that way while looking at Maury's work.
Mm-hmm. But he's actually saying here that the group would be an inspiration, not
because of that's how Maury makes you feel with his work. If you look at it, and I felt it. I really did.
Yeah. Now, I
really felt bad for Berkowitz at one point during this investigation, looking at it from that angle, like he was trapped by them. He got trapped into something that he didn't know, and it went too far, but that was not it. Of course, like I'm trying to point out to you, if you look at Maury's work and really follow his stuff, that you should fall into that at one point.
Yeah, and that's your Christian compassion for him. But in my opinion, it made me think that perhaps the cult was a stimulant for something that he had in his mind about murdering people also. Now, here we have, Terry asks, if they were all in it, we'd be dealing with 13, right? If it's a typical coven. And now we go back to coven. A group like the Process Church of the Final Judgment is not a coven. So Larry answers, that's the traditional number, but some stick to it, some don't. This doesn't sound like people who pay strict attention to tradition. And at that point, Ziegel picks up the Breslin letter and he says, see this alias? I think that may be the answer. And here we get, and here is where Terry's led into this, the 22 disciples of hell. And Terry states in the narrative, as we had discussed, the Sam letters were sprinkled with occult references. In the Borelli letter, they included Weeman as in demon, Brat as in imp or small devil, Outsider, the title of an occult book, Beelzebub, the demon known as Lord of the Flies, the Hunt, a reference to the goddess Diana, Queen of the Black Sabbath and leader of the Wild Hunt. Well, we don't know if that really represents Diana. And I'll be back, words identical to those spoken by Satan in the book Black Easter. In addition, the Borelli letter contained obvious references to blood drinking, a satanic practice.
And that is wrong. Okay. And I do have a video coming up and I'll show you how it's wrong.
And there's nothing about blood drinking. Refresh my mind.
But not in the satanic practice that they're trying to make it out. You know what I mean? When he's talking about this in his crazy letters, it's just him rambling.
When I was
about Sam Carr needing blood and stuff like that, and
for the dogs, he was hunting blood and meat.
They don't mention Carr here drinking the blood though here. But when I did a previous show on these letters, I had not read this book. It was 1987, and I says, "Oh, Women, a dislike for women, and therefore he writes an E instead of an
I agree with that.
O.
But
D,
that's it. It's as simple as that.
yeah.
Right.
So,
And we do know that he doesn't like women.
yeah.
Right. And he has a problem with demons.
That's
And right. It's as simple as that. That's it. It's a hate word towards women in a sense.
Yeah. So then here we get now to when we reach the name of Behemoth, the infernal watchman and demon of gluttony. I asked Larry, do you know how Behemoth is depicted in the occult? And Larry answers with a question, as an elephant, right? Yes. And do you know the Latin word for elephant? No, it's elephas. Does that ring a bell? Now I want to hold on here.
Ha.
This
yeah,
guy,
you better, because we're gonna get into a little circus research here.
yeah, because this guy is introduced as an expert, right? A researcher, well informed. Why would he have to say as an elephant, right? He would say, yes, he's depicted as an elephant or a huge monstrosity. And yet, and he doesn't know the Latin word for elephant. So this fellow, how deep has he studied these terms? And Terry, when he says no, Terry says it's elephas. Does that ring a bell? Larry let out a long whistle.
So from behemoth we have elephant, right?
Yeah.
And then from elephant we go to elephas.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
And Larry says, sure, the Elephas disco in Queens where the shooting occurred. And Terry replies, yeah, this letter was left at the April shooting in the Bronx. The next attack happened outside the Elephas.
Right. So behemoth was a clue to the next attack.
Yeah.
Right.
So Larry nodded. And of course, remember,
because behemoth is elephant, because they say it's elephant. And then elephant goes to elephas. And
and also remember that Terry was very good with word games. He was one of these guys who did he did crossword puzzles. He cross-referred words here, there, and everywhere. Behemoth is in the book of Job, in the Holy Bible. And it's a Hebrew word which actually means beast, but it's
well, it means elephant now.
Yeah, it means
Maury.
Beast. But actually, they think it might originate from an Egyptian word.
It couldn't be anything to do with the beast in the car backyard.
No,
that he thinks is a monster.
Well, for the Egyptians, it possibly meant the water ox, meaning hippopotamus, altered by folk etymology in Hebrew to resemble behema.
Elephants and hippos.
Yeah, but it was.
It's crazy. This is absolutely crazy.
And then of course, the word for hippopotamus in Russian remains derivative of behemoth, beremot. So anyway, I don't see, it. And then of course, if you go to the book of Job, you're going to see a big, and then it's associated also with the sea monster Leviathan. So, and of course, there's always in mythology, there's always the comparison of.
Well, it was pretty simple. It was Harvey.
Yeah.
Can I just point out, I'm not trying to throw shade on Maury, but the dude did make up Trudy Zeke. So, I mean, there may be a possibility this Larry character is also made up. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, I'm going to be truthful, and I'm not anti-Maury, Terry. Neither am I pro. You know how my mind works. I was just thinking that a few lines back. Was there really a Larry Ziegel, or is this a dialogue with oneself? Now, Please, I don't want anybody to walk away thinking that. I'm not trying to slander the man. But it's just the way the dialogue takes place that if he's well informed and a researcher,
Yep.
he seems to be very overwhelmed by all of this.
So this is a script written by Maury?
It's looking like it.
Possibly.
It seems. It seems. I'm not
So if
going
you had to put $1 million on it, Eric.
Plus,
right
he had a book deal, Neo. He had to set it up.
Right now, I have to say that there is a Larry Ziegel because I can't be unfair. But the way the dialogue is that the only thing that justifies this dialogue, believe it or not, is David Berkowitz and what he tells Caparelli. That's
what we know what he told Caparelli was not true.
That possibly.
Well, it wasn't. I can tell you from what I saw, and he also told Caparelli he was lying on.
But you see, he didn't tell Caparelli he was lying.
Yeah, he did.
No, he did. The only Caparelli wouldn't have put it in the book. What he told Caparelli was that he had to tell the truth. He was not murdering people with others. He did it all alone. But he doesn't deny other things that he told Caparelli.
I think Caparelli knows the truth now. He has got enough work in front of him.
This has to be cleared. He told Caparelli he has to tell the truth. He can't lie. That he was alone shooting people, murdering people. But he didn't say he lied about everything else. That's the point. He didn't say he lied about everything else.
But he was.
Look at Vinny and Danny.
He was. That's what I'm saying. If you want to keep going back to what he told Caparelli, I can tell you that what he told Caparelli is a lie. Because he did not know John Carr.
This is the whole.
I'm going to stay with that. I mean, people can have their opinion with it.
You're right to stay with that because that's the excellent research you've done. You're right to stay with that.
But I just have a lot of evidence backing that up.
I know, but when you have the major protagonist of this case, then you have to analyze him. Why is he doing this? Okay, this is the whole point. He doesn't deny anything. Satan groups, the children, to create havoc, to go out and murder. He only changes at the end by saying, I have to tell you the truth. I'm paraphrasing. I wasn't with others doing the killings. I did it on my own. That's the only thing that changes. He doesn't deny any of this. So then they go on. Larry nodded and he blurts. And look at this. The next paragraph talks about the women of Queens. It's Eliphas and Queens back to back. If this stands up, it knocks down the random shooting idea the cops are pushing.
Which it was.
And then who was killed from Eliphas? I did a show on
that. Nobody was killed. That was Judy and Sal.
Yeah.
All right. They were shot at though. They weren't
killed.
Yeah. Okay, but even to this day, I think Judy Placido has suffered. She doesn't want to talk about it. It's unnerving. You're in a car and boom. Now, exactly, it would at least mean a location was chosen in advance. I would say a location is chosen in advance, but I can't say necessarily those two people were chosen in advance.
Well, David said he was stalking the locations,
Yeah, that's that. I had analyzed and I had made a comparison that I think wasn't he around Glen Oaks, and he would study the area like on reconnaissance a day or two before the shooting. What parked cars are there? How many people are there? And therefore, the location is chosen. Now, there are people who want to try and say that the people were also specifically chosen. I do believe that there are two shootings where there's a choosing, but I won't go into that now. So he goes on to say, exactly, it would at least mean a location was chosen in advance. That's true. And who knows who or what else might have been, Larry added. So, Who else? You mean another person, another thing? And Terry says that's the point. The police have built a house of cards, and we're trying to prove it's just that flimsy. We don't have to come up with all the answers. If we can show Berkowitz didn't do just one of these shootings, we've knocked down the whole thing. So Larry said, like, who really wrote the letters? That was another thing. The Borelli letter sounded as if it was written inside the car home.
Neo.
How? By Harvey.
Yeah. The text was clearly from the viewpoint of someone in that house, not from Berkowitz's apartment high on the hill behind it. The telling phrases included behind our house, lock me in the garage, we know this, look out the attic window, ties me up to the back of the house, and then
everything Harvey was doing.
Sounds like a dog, doesn't it?
And there were also some extremely personal references to Sam Carr's health and habits in it. I was certain that someone who knew Sam Carr well and hated him had a hand in the composition of the Borelli letter. Okay, this is where the logic falls. I'm accepting what he says, but I'm also being contrary to it. I could know of somebody's home. Let's say I've been to either of your homes. I could write a letter at home that's descriptive of your house. But it doesn't mean that I'm writing that letter in your house.
And also there was vacant woods right behind a car house. He could have been stalking them, watching them, listening to them easily. It wasn't even hard.
So now all of a sudden, here's a question that Larry asks. So Larry must have foreknowledge. What do you think, John or Michael? And Terry says, I don't know who printed it, but I'd bet you anything one of them provided the words, or at least some of them. He spelled honor the British way, too, with an A-O-U-R. Does that sound like Berkey from the Bronx? Well, I'm going to say if Berkowitz has if Berkowitz has read all these letters, and Berkowitz or whomever else, I'm keeping myself broad, says women instead of women, why, if he's using an old Anglo-Saxon word, which women is also, why would the guy not write H-O-N-O-U-R? Why does and then he says he spells it the British way. Well, Michael Carr is not British. John Carr's not British.
Nope.
So you see what I mean? So it's somebody got it from a book or something. You follow me?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't explain that honor.
Yeah, well,
but I can't explain all the other stuff.
Yeah, well, it's another way of spelling. It's another way of spelling a word.
He's just trying to be a smart aleck.
Larry laughed. No, it doesn't. Does that sound like Berkey from the Bronx? No, it doesn't. Larry laughed. Now, as you know, I tend to believe Berkowitz wasn't alone, but I don't care for this. I don't care for it myself, and I consider myself very, very analytical as an investigator. Larry laughed. No, it doesn't. It's a bit too shallow. It's a bit too simple. And then he says, I'd also say whoever wrote this was stoned on something when he did. It sounds so crude when compared to the Breslin thing. It's just off the wall. Well, I don't think anybody was stoned when they wrote that letter. I think it's very calculating, even writing the italics in reverse. It's very calculating. I don't think anybody's stoned. I really would like to meet this guy, Larry Ziegel. I can't find him. He says,
why?
He says it's off the wall. Then Larry reached for an occult book entitled The Book of Ceremonial Magic. And he states to him, you talked about Behemoth and Eliphas being the same thing. Take a look at this. On the cover of the book, a large circular symbol of obvious occult derivation was staring at me. I shrugged and asked Larry, what was he getting at? And Larry advises. He advises him. That's the word, he advised. Look inside the circle near the center. So it looked like the graphic symbol on the Breslin letter. It wasn't exact, but all the elements were there. It was very similar to the SAM symbol and was identified as the Getic circle of black evocations and pacts. On the inside pages, I read a section which explained the symbol's origin. I almost dropped the book. The symbol was created by famed 19th century occultist Eliphas Leib. It was another Eliphas link.
All right, let's bring this picture of this up, right? Do you look at those two and think they look similar? Just be honest.
Well, you got the top part of there on the top of the upside down triangle. Okay. You see the crisscross there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You just got a little eye catcher, if anything, on here, I think, with that to that. And then, I mean, look at the lettering. It really is.
And Serac is
this one is a little coincidentally insane. When you look at the lettering, it just, I don't know. But
now,
yeah,
this on the left, or the rich diagram you've got up.
That's this.
Where is it from? The
That's
book?
from Eliphas Levi.
Right.
That's what they just mentioned in the book.
Right.
This is the Goetic circle.
All right, put the symbol up again.
All right. I personally don't think they look anything like that.
All right, Kay. Again, too. Not only that, but you got those circles.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Well, I think one of these means man and one female.
I see Christ at the top, Satan at the bottom, male.
I'm just saying what I see. There is, there is a little resemblance to it. It's not crazy.
No, there is a little resemblance, but it's not as rich as Levi's, without a doubt. But isn't this?
I'm glad you put this up like this, Rena, because when you look at it like this, you do see a little bit resemblance. You do
the two
between the circles and the cross up top. You also have the cross, I'm just saying again, we know it's just a coincidence, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe he's seen this, and I don't know.
I love how Maury had it holding up to a mirror, and backwards it spelled Sam, Carr, and Berkey. You know, he was seeing things that weren't there, wasn't he? Okay. How would Eliphas Levi know in the 18th century Berkowitz and Sam Carr? I mean...
No, well, they're not saying he does, but you see the one with the arrow pointing to the right? You see that?
Yep.
Here? Okay. That is the symbol of male. That's the male.
Mm-hmm.
Female is the cross below the circle.
And he was killing males and females, and Neo thinks he's battling God, and he's got Satan on his other shoulder.
Well, wait. Neo says he's battling God?
Yeah, well, he's blaming God for everything.
Well, I think that Neo has a point.
What are we talking?
There is an inner struggle.
The symbol, Neo. Christ at the top, Satan at the bottom, male and female.
I don't know anything with the symbol. I don't know what the symbol means. It could mean anything. You need to talk to this guy in prison. He'll tell you what that means.
Yeah,
it looks like a crazy chaos magic symbol.
Well, I actually gave to people, and nobody gave a damn, the original symbol of these arrows, which is a very godly symbol. Nothing with the occult. It's a very orthodox religious symbol. Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, authentic Judaism, Islam, they're very beautiful symbols. What it means, it's complex, it's geometrical. I have it, I've sent it to people, but they don't seem to care. I'm not referring to the two of you, but this is like an inversion. It's almost, I don't want to put it down. I'm not saying it's superficial, but it's almost like somebody who's dabbling or even is childish, or somebody in his mind thinks he's doing something profound.
Or he's just being an attention seeker.
Where is this picture from? What book?
What, the Eliphas Levi symbol?
Yeah.
The Goetic Circle of Black Invocations?
All right, it's in the book. The picture's there.
Yeah, these books have got crazy names. Yeah, that's from there.
When was the book published?
It was like the 18th century.
Yeah.
Very, very long time ago.
But Eliphas Levi was not his real name.
Well, Maury had, the Eliphas Disco and Eliphas Levi is spelt completely different. I mean, the A and the I. I mean, he was just seeing things that weren't there, wasn't he?
See, Eliphas Levi was a name he took on. Eliphas Levi Zahed. He was born Alphonse Louis Constant, and he was a poet. He initially wanted to be a priest in the Roman Apostolic Catholic Church, and he was very, very erudite, and but then he became involved in ceremonial magic, and he wrote about 20 books. At the age of 40, he began a very serious occult study. He wrote 20 books: the Kabbalah, magic, alchemical studies, occultism, and he was in that post-French Revolution occult culture. Sometimes they refer to them occult rejects, because the French Revolution was for only science, nothing occult, nothing even religious like the church or anything. It was only focusing on man and science. But
well, they go on to explain more about, the goetic circle of black evocations here in Pax. And
well, the reason why I'm explaining all of this, though, is because I don't think they understand thoroughly. There's not enough of a profound knowledge of all of this sometimes. It's so it goes on. He tries to say, and he says it's spelled with an I instead of an E, but I don't think that matters, Larry says. Eliphas. And
yeah, we'll just ignore that they're spelled differently. That don't matter.
Yeah, and Terry says it doesn't matter a bit, in agreement, and studied that Levi's symbol more closely. On the outer perimeter of the circle, there were several words written at intervals around the circumference. One was Berkayal, and the other was Amsarak. And Larry advises. He keeps saying that he's advising. He's advising. He doesn't.
Yeah, he's telling Maury what he wants to hear, by the sounds of it.
One of Berkowitz's nicknames is Burke. And we know how backward words and phrases are part of satanic practices, like saying the Our Father backwards. And Terry says so. And oh boy. And so look at Amasarak backward. It's Kar Asam or Sam Carr. That's Larry.
Sama.
Yeah.
Or Sam Carr. It's incredible. I'm sorry.
Oh no. Wait. It's Maury Terry advising Larry that it's Burke. And he asks so, and it's Maury Terry who gets out of Amsarak backwards Sam Carr. And Laurie is so exalted, he takes our Lord's name in vain. And then he says, when they found this symbol, they must have flipped. It ties to Eliphas, and now this. It was perfect for them to base the Sam symbol on it.
Right. This Larry character is not like saying to Maury, I think that's a bit wacky, All I know about the occult and
what would Sam Carr have to do with the cult?
Yeah, what would Sam Carr have to do?
Sam Carr's the one going all over the place trying to get this guy put in prison.
Yeah.
What would he be doing?
See, what I question in reading this is, my intuition led me to Larry Ziegel to look deeper into him, and I did this search on the Microsoft Word. Now that I read it with you and we're conversing more, I want to know. It's not the lingo of a researcher and well-informed scholar.
Exactly, Eric. Exactly. He's telling him what he wants to hear.
I mean, he wouldn't. He would say, let's say, if he was the handwriting expert. The handwriting expert that he went to would have said, let me have a look at that.
Yeah.
And
Not agree with everything
Yeah.
immediately.
When I said that Maury Terry was very good with names, let me give you an example and about sounds. What name does he give Steve Trockman?
Reed Rockman.
Right. Now listen to the pronunciation. Steve, Steve, Reeve, Reeve, Rockman, Trackman. You see what I mean? The sound of the phonetics of the original name makes him come up with a similar, with a protective name, but similar phonetics. He's very good with playing with words. D channel, D, Lee.
Yeah, because he
Lee.
needs it to fit his
Yeah.
narrative.
So you have channel, cha,
You
cha,
see that quite
chase,
often.
chase.
It's reaching for
Well,
anything you can possibly try and use
So he's
to
very
make sense of what you want.
yeah.
Well,
So
he's got Vinny and Danny as two people, and it's just one person, Alex Ferrone. He was Trudy Zeke on Facebook, his alter ego. How do we know this Larry character is not an alter ego?
well, wait. Vinny and Danny. Doesn't he say that they were a composite of one person? No,
It's Alex Ferrone.
right. They're a composite of one person.
Yes.
Okay.
And made up characters.
Right, because he states that it would be dangerous from jail if it was known.
Why not just say Danny? Why Vinny? Why make it sound like two people and it was just one?
Well, I guess because you can well, to be serious, it's clever. I'm being objective. It's a very good way of diverting attention. If somebody were to say, hey, somebody's talking, right? I know who it is, but you've got two names. It throws people, let's say in organized crime, will feel that somebody's a rat, somebody's talking as they shouldn't be talking, and so forth and so on, if you see what I mean.
See,
So by breaking
when you read this on your own, you don't really, it's when you go over it with a couple of people, you see things differently when you dissect everything.
Yeah, and in a way, I don't think Hank Chinotti would be in agreement with this. And I don't know what Peter Lavender would say. In fact, I was thinking before I'd like to try and get him on the show. So anyway, and so Larry says it was perfect for them to base the Sam symbol on it, and Terry says in the narrative it was. We'd found a symbol almost identical to Son of Sam's that was drawn by Eliphas Levi. It's not almost identical. Levy's is very rich.
Even if Berkowitz did get the idea from that and just put it on the letter, what is that? How does that equal other people?
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you can say. The only way you can prove other people are the logistics of the crimes, and that doesn't prove other people. You could have one person doing it. In fact, I really don't believe that a collective sits down and creates together a symbol. Now, it would happen. Let's take Eliphas Levi. Look how complex and rich that is. He did that on his own. So I don't see where you need to, I think this was done by one person. That's just my intuition.
I like how everything this guy is telling him, Maury essentially based his whole investigation around everything this guy is telling him here.
Yeah. Now, remember, though, this is after Berkowitz is in jail.
No, I mean, as he carries on through the years.
Well,
the
that's
President's Church, the dogs, John Carr, everything this guy's telling him and they're talking about, Maury goes with it.
And Terry says to him, I say they hit at Eliphas as some symbolic act and cutely tipped their hand with the symbol in the Breslin letter and the behemoth Eliphas reference in the Borelli note. They were letting it out in advance where they were going to hit. Well, sometimes there are these murderers who do give hints of where they're going to go later. Doesn't mean it's there, but That does happen. That's known in criminology.
I think that was a random attack outside the club.
Could be right.
I don't see why he would be leaving a clue of that in the
Well,
letter prior.
Well, the clue could be that's the location where that's going to be hit.
Right. All because of behemoth in the letter, meaning elephant.
Right.
Right.
So Larry's response was subdued. If the symbol and the disco were both named Jones, that'd be another matter. But not Eliphas. We're beyond coincidence. I don't like this feeling I'm getting. It's like we're inside somebody's head out there, somebody that scares the hell out of me. So Larry,
he is hard-hitting sentences here, doesn't he?
So Larry Ziegel is in this narrative. Larry Ziegel is afraid. He's showing fear as we proceed. First, he's apprehensive, this and that. I do know that Harry Daly was offended when he was described in the book as shaking and maybe sweating. I forget how he describes him when they go in a coven. And Hank Chinotti told me that's, come on, the guy helped you get the book published. You don't write that about him. So anyway, we quickly went through the remainder of the Breslin letter. There was another allusion to blood drinking along with the phrase, spirit roaming the night. However, the most important satanic clue was contained in the letter's first sentence. Hello from the gutters of NYC, which are filled with dog manure, vomit, stale wine, urine, and blood.
Well, we think there he's referencing Taxi Driver.
Yeah, that's from Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver, and I think the dialogue was by Paul Schrader, and
nothing to do with satanic worshipping whatsoever. He was just trying to describe the dirty streets of NYC, and he did it very well.
So these elements, as listed in numerous occult books and explained earlier, were used in the satanic Black Mass, a full-scale mockery and debasement of the Roman Catholic Mass, and the allusion to stale wine implied more than was apparent. Stale was also synonym for animal urine. In other words, animal urine was drunk instead of wine in the ritual. Well, they do these things in these rituals. So Larry said, so now we've got the Black Mass too. It's like they were hinting all the while, but no one picked up on it. I don't.
Because they have brains.
Again, he's taking something and making something out of it that's not there.
Yeah,
I feel.
If I was Larry, I would say, I would want a verification. Is it a Black Mass? It's all. I don't think anyone wanted to. I observed. And I was sure people in the occult underground understood the meaning of the Breslin letter, but they either remained silent or the police didn't listen. I recall that on the preceding Halloween, the CBS Nightly News had wrapped up its broadcast with a lighthearted feature about a parapsychology convention being held in New York City. And he tells Larry, right there on camera was a flip chart with the SAM symbol on it and wording about the occult influences in it. I said this was a camera pan. They didn't talk about it, but there it was on national TV, and nobody catches it. But this association obviously knew about some of the references. Guess it just sounds so damned unreal. And Larry says, he counters, to us in the mainstream it does. It's a whole other culture. There are people out there who fake this stuff very seriously, and it looks like we've run into some of them. Now, that's a curious sentence. Look what he says. There are people out there who take this stuff seriously. It's almost as if now he's denying it. They take this stuff very serious, and it looks like we've run into some of them. So the average person just says, that's a lot of balderdash, and they take it serious. Terry,
have you read enough of this chapter, Eric?
I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that.
I think we've both all come to the conclusion that it's looking like perhaps Larry was Maury.
Well, I have to be truthful, and I'm not one who knocks Maury Terry. You know that I'm critical, but I don't knock him. I don't say, as some do, he's full of shit and all of that. But it's just that I want to know more about Larry Ziegel, and I can't find him. I can't find this man. And then when I'm told that he's an expert in everything, the dialogue, I mean, unless Maury Terry doesn't have a good recollection of what the dialogue was like, unless he took poor notes. If Larry Ziegel exists, if anybody knows Larry Ziegel, if you know of anything, just please come forth. We're not antagonistic. So,
do you think Maury ever sat there and thought, there's quite a few people I've got in this cult. The risk of exposure is so much riskier because, you increase someone leaving evidence, people falling out. Serial killers tend to work on impulse and control. If you have more than one person, that's not you solely controlling the narrative.
Well, I would disagree with you that serial killers are always alone. Some are, some aren't. I believe there can be a collectivity out there. Let me use this analogy. Let's take the Red Brigade in Italy, the Baader-Meinhof, these political terrorist groups. They work together. The Weather Underground, right? So what would stop people committing another type of crime of serial murder?
All right, but Maury has got drug addicts, criminals, the worst of the worst in this cult, Eric. How would they trust these people, for one? Serial killers could, they're motivated by the desire to have total control over a victim in a situation.
Exactly. Well,
they're paranoid and mistrust.
Well, in the case of David Berkowitz, he, as a person alone, from some writings and files, that's where my wife said, she explained, he's the Lord of life, because I had read something out there. She was in the kitchen and she said, yes, because he wants to be a relationship with you and you're within his life, but then he wants to control you. He's the Lord of life. He decides how long you can stay alive and when he eliminates you.
Killing someone is a logistically risky act, Eric, isn't it? Working time minimizes complications and
I would say that it's a risky act, but
but more than one person, you can make mistakes, panic, leave evidence, go and blab to someone. Look at what happened to the Manson murders. Okay. She blabbed in jail.
Okay. Let's stay with the serial killer who's alone and not with others. And the others has two types as far as I'm concerned. You could have one person with the group, but the one person goes out to murder. But the group is in agreement with it. They're a place of comfort. They're a place of return. The ritual.
How will all these people kept quiet, Eric?
Let me finish. Right. Well, they do. Loyalty to the one who's the.
But these are drug addicts and criminals, Eric. These aren't sophisticated criminals we got here.
And where was that loyalty built?
Wait.
To these people.
How do we know that they're all drug addicts? But the one serial killer alone. Let me finish.
He's got people like Suzanne Conway.
Yeah, let me finish this. Let's not jump around. Let me just finish this point. If we're dealing with one serial killer alone, you say it's risky. But after a while, because of the success that one person has, there is no idea of risk.
Yeah, but with someone like David, he wanted the credit, the power, the infamy, all to himself. He didn't want to share it with others.
That's one perspective of it. The problem that we have with this black hole of a case, as I've always pointed out, and I remain here, is the way he changes his story back and forth. And how do I say he's lying here or he's lying there? How do I say that maybe he's lying to De Gennaro?
You have to look at who he's talking to and the conversation.
That's right. He feeds what they want, but it's all right. So what do we make? I always go back to this man because I still think it's very interesting. Maurice Dubois, who's interviewing him, I don't know of anybody where he's asked, were you alone or were you with others? And he's very evasive. He says he's neither alone nor with others. And look at his body language, the way he moves his head and twists and turns. He doesn't do that with anybody else who's interviewing him. He loses eye contact with Dubois.
Do you not think, though, Eric, if he was part of a bigger network of others, so he gets tipped off a few days before his arrest that he's going to be arrested, don't you think they would get rid of the gun at least? And not have David coming out with the gun in his hand with other guns in the car? Wouldn't they try and eliminate all evidence?
Yes, I agree with you. So then we have to also come up with the reason why did he come out with the gun so open like that?
And if they were sharing the gun around, why did David happen to have it on him the night he was arrested if they were sharing it?
Well, was there more than one gun?
Well, they said they were passing the gun around, but David just happened to have it with him. So, I mean...
Yeah, but
why?
So
that was one of the stories put out in the paper, right?
But you see, one of the things that I question is, why does he come out with the gun so out in the open?
He was going that night to take care of business.
But why not?
I don't think there's any doubt that he knew they were outside. I don't know how he... Again, you got to talk to him about some of this stuff.
If we're
not going to get any straight answer.
And if they really wanted to be clever, they would have used different guns at every attack to really throw the police off. Not stick to the same gun for all 8 attacks, Eric.
Yeah, but you see, by using the same gun, the same symbols, the same tactic, you build up it's almost like a psychological terrorist atmosphere. Look at how everybody was on edge.
And that goes back to the control and dominance.
Right, but if there was a shooting done without the 44, it wouldn't be attached to him. And he needed to fulfill the media's picture of him in order for him to be tagged to the shooting. So him keeping the 44 and doing the shooting, they knew it was him. Otherwise, they wouldn't know it was him. And he wanted them to know it was him.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to remember, Eric, it's fantasy driven, a lot of this. I believe that was happening with David. Personal fantasies of him.
Yeah.
And you can't share that with another person or a group of people.
But a group of people could use somebody. They could use somebody. I think I sometimes find, let's say I look at him as being with others and not alone, because I look at both. He seems to be like somebody who could be easily not manipulated, but could find comfort with others.
Right. When he was arrested too, Eric, Nathan speaks to him, and Nathan says David told him nothing of a satanic cult. And I think that after, the arrest, we talked to his father, even if he made mistakes looking into this stuff or was around the wrong people, don't you think he would have said, Dad, I screwed up. It's around the wrong people. I really didn't do the right, anything to somewhat of that. Don't you think he would have said something to Nathan?
It's possible.
But why wouldn't he? I mean, he was coming clean with the police. We see his father. I just don't see him not saying that to his father as an excuse if that was the case. I think he would tell his father.
You're being kind, and I'm not being sarcastic.
Well, just the way I think he was with his father. From my research, I think he would have told him what happened, and his father states that he never mentioned to him about any satanic cult.
Maybe because there was none.
I'm curious about.
Did he look into this stuff, Eric?
The father?
Possibly, he had some stuff in his apartment, right? I mean, he could have been looking into this stuff, like you say, and just separate from feeding his mind with it, did this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not sure what he was studying or looking into.
It's I can't give definitive answers because of how everything, there are two different stories given all the time, and even within two different stories, there are variations given. Um, it's.
Do you have any doubts, Eric, at this very moment in time, whether David acted alone or not? I mean, where are you at?
I have no doubts, but I have a parallel. He was alone and he wasn't alone.
Where are you leaning more towards now?
I'm in the middle.
So no more zero. At least you're all right. He's in the middle. Good.
And the reason why I'm
in the middle.
the reason why I'm in the middle is because I would like to have contact with him. But I wonder if he would, well, I do have an opening to write to him, although.
But what do you think you're going to get from him, Eric?
Oh, I don't think I'm going to get any truth, perhaps. I guess I have faith in myself, the way I relate. I don't think I'm going to get any truth at all. And there are a lot of people, somebody just wrote an article saying that he should be paroled without thinking of victims or anything.
Do you think he should be paroled?
No. I think that there is behind him, and I'm being truthful, and I would say this, I think behind him there's something very, very dark still present.
I agree, Eric.
I really do. I think there's something extremely, extremely dark and
I don't think that ever leaves you.
And deranged. Really, really very dark.
What do you think, Neo? Do you think he should be paroled?
No way. Nope. He should just stay in there, and I just wish people would leave him alone. I don't think he's felt real prison his entire time captive with all these games he's played, and I just wish people would just leave him alone. That would be nice from my standpoint.
But you see,
I would like just leave him alone.
If people
alone, that's where he should be alone. He's never been alone. He's had more people around him in prison than when he was out as a civilian. He was abandoned, had nothing. He goes to prison, and he's had more people around him paying attention to him while he's in prison. Just leave him alone.
You see, the whole thing of leave alone, he wants this in a way because he could always not respond to anyone.
Again, why would he not? Who wants to be alone? That's what I try pointing out in some of these videos. You can be mad at him for lying all you want, but you're not in prison alone. And he's going to fight that at times and be selfish and do what he has to not be alone.
But
I don't like it. I hate it.
But when you say,
my opinion matters nothing, but it's reality.
But when you say leave him alone, right?
Yeah, leave him alone. Let him be in prison alone and talk to the walls. That's what his punishment should be.
Oh, in other words, solitary confinement.
Well, he hasn't had that. Again, he's abandoned, has nothing as a civilian, really feels alone, and then he goes to prison, and he's a movie star, and you guys keep keeping him like that.
Yeah, you keep treating him like one. Yeah,
right.
Well, look at the weird women who fell in love with Jeffrey Dahmer after all he did. They're sitting in the balcony.
Look at the weird women that got a hold of Berkowitz right after his arrest.
Well, Ted Bundy got married in prison and had a child.
Again, I still say he's been the most comfortable prisoner in United
of course,
States.
And there's the point that Thomas Morris makes. These people become religious zealots in prison because they're given special privileges.
Yeah, he gets that. But in the long run, Eric, he has saved people. God's worked through him, used him as a vessel, as people can look at him and be like, how does he act like this? So in the long run, God wins by using him. Is he a good Christian? Hey, that's his. Does he get up every day and try? That's his. I don't know. I'm not going to say that. But in the end, in the long run, he loses this battle with God, Eric, because God used him and will continue to use him whenever he feels like it.
But he has to he has to tell the exact truth and not keep going back and forth.
Steve says maybe when he's facing his demise, he will be honest.
I think he's been honest and just been twisted in every angle to just.
Neo, nobody is ever totally dishonest. But where is the honesty if the story keeps changing?
But it doesn't change until the wrong people start changing it. Just like now, in modern time, people want to change things. No, he got arrested, Eric. He admitted to everything. Everything added up in his interrogation after the arrest.
I have a question to ask you, because you've gone deep into this, boots on the ground, as you say, like Joe Kistner in Minnesota with what he investigates. If he admitted to doing everything, let's say a prisoner admits to doing everything, yes, I'm guilty, and then subsequently,
what's going on, Ant?
Oh, there's our friend. Nothing that comes out of his mouth has any value whatsoever.
He means Maury, I take it.
Straight to the point, and straight to the point.
Always straight to the point.
What's he talking about? Maury Terry or
yeah,
Berkowitz? I see.
If Anthony wants to come on, drop a link for him.
Yeah, anybody else also. If anybody else would like to come in. But the
what were you saying, Eric?
What was I going to say? I just lost it when I turned the comments on. What were we talking about? Honesty. What we talk? Oh, here's what I wanted to play. The question I wanted to ask you, Neil. Let's say there is a prisoner who admits to doing the crimes, but then you find out that prisoner wants. Oh, he's talking about Berkowitz. Lieutenant DiMaggio says it's Berkowitz. Thank you, Anthony. Now, let's say there is a prisoner who has admitted to guilt. He stated, I did it. But then subsequently, the prisoner files for appeals. What do you say about that? What do you say about that?
Did he ever do that?
I know nothing about that.
No, because he's not going to play games with them.
Mm-hmm.
He's never filed for appeal and said, I want to change my mind.
Right.
He knows what he did, and he told the right people the right information. Like, again, you got to remember who he's speaking to when you want to look at the information.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I feel.
Here was a previous comment by Lieutenant DiMaggio. Before Eliphas and Eliphas, it was a mob social club. After that shooting, Carmine Galante put on an open contract on the son of Sam's head, even though the killer was unidentified. So Carmine Galante, for those of you who don't know, is one of the big heads of organized crime mafia.
Right, I'm sure they didn't like that going on in their area.
Once again, I don't know when we're going to end the show, but anybody out there, if you can find this Larry Ziegel.
Yes. Well, I tried to do some research earlier, Eric, and I couldn't come up with anything.
You know,
I couldn't come up with anything, Eric.
You know, it's curious. I questioned, I interviewed, I have the call with Dr. Larry Ziegel. And he says, no, I'm not the same man. I didn't know Maury Terry, but you know what? I was born on a street where the shooting took place. That was Donna Lauria and Jody Valente. And then he goes on.
So he could have seen it in the newspaper, Eric.
Yeah.
The name, Larry Ziegel.
Yeah, this other Larry Ziegel. But I just have to say, reading it out loud with you before you brought it up, Rena, I started to wonder, is this a dialogue that Maury's having with himself?
It sounds like it, Eric.
It just because the man is supposed to be a scholar a scholar. And then I can't find anything about a caper at Woodlawn Cemetery. I find things,
it sounds very basic for Maury's portraying him as this guy that knows his shit.
This is the one thing that also bothers me. Now, people are going to say, oh, you're trashing Maury. I've never trashed him. I've gotten angry. The one thing I question, and it's funny, when I was doing Son of Sam shows, this was even kind of brushed aside by more than one person. When we first get the name John Carr, here, I'm gonna find it again. This does bother me. I mean, the lack of expression, the lack of
Steve says he's not real. Steve, can I ask you, Steve? I don't know the answer to this. Do you think David acted alone or with others? It's something I always ask you, Neo. Do you know? You don't know. Steve, tell us.
What Steve thinks?
Yeah. Tell us what you think, Steve. Because sometimes, he says he acted alone. Okay.
There you go.
There you go. I kind of suspected that.
Now, Steve, did you think he had accomplices?
I did at one point. Just for a hot minute, though, Steve.
Well, what would the work that was left there that you had to look at? Who it was hard to think he was alone.
Yeah, Neo's book convinced me.
Good. Thanks, man.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
But
Neo convinced me
too,
and if I could find anything for Maury's case, I wouldn't mind showing that or seeing it, but we keep showing you work that doesn't add up. The last video you had about the Bible, now we're seeing this, and it's just a lot of question marks on his work.
There's been a lot of debunking of this book, and
it goes back to the credibility, right, of his work.
I mean, I always have to bear in mind that this dude was writing a book, but where do you draw the line at accusing people of murder?
Well, the first time we hear of John Carr is in chapter 6, Catch 44 Caliber. Okay? And he speaks of Wheat Carr in this book, and this is the first time we hear of John Carr in the book. At that minute, her older brother, that would be Wheat's, 30-year-old John Carr, was on the road. Now, he knew John Carr in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Why? I mean, does he want to keep himself disattached?
That's another question. This is a question a lot of people have with
why
this.
would he not say, lo and behold, I knew this person? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Why would he not say that?
I will never understand that, Eric.
And when I brought that up 4 years ago, it was just discarded.
Why?
I don't know. No one paid much attention to me. I don't think it was malicious, but I think it was superficial to overlook that. I said in conversation to somebody, hey, they say he went to Sacred Heart High School with John Carr. He how come there's no amazement of saying, hey, I knew John?
Right.
And how come he doesn't say, I knew the Carrs,
Mm-hmm.
which he did. It doesn't mean that they were very, very close.
But he doesn't bring him up at all.
No.
That he went to school with him.
No.
But he does in the Josh Seaman documentary. Well, not Maury, but they tell the story of when Maury sees John Weeds in the letter, and then he talks to somebody, and they say that that's the John Weeds we went to school with. So Maury was aware. that he went to school with this kid. I think if Maury had not seen John's name, I don't think he would have gone near this case. That's just my.
When you look at all the letters, Goncalo should be looked at way more than John Carr. Okay, why is that? Why is there no heat on Goncalo when you really look at Berkowitz's letters, all of them, not just the two that went to public? So I don't see that either. John Carr is really not mentioned too much in his letters. It's all Goncalo and Sam. He doesn't even talk about John Carr ever.
Steve, I think it was just extremely bad luck that John and Michael died so close together. And we know John had his issues. Michael, I think, was very tired and shouldn't have been driving. Was his blood alcohol level ever tested? Do we know? Because we said that Michael didn't drink. He didn't drink, but other people state they had seen him drinking.
I think it was Tom Turkey Taylor who said that they saw him drinking, but Wheat said he didn't.
Yeah, I can't imagine losing two children in a short space of time like Sam and Francis did. I mean,
yeah, that's overlooked a lot in this story. You know,
one's bad enough, but two,
his kids,
under those circumstances, and to have John Carr's picture of his body with his head blown off in a book, I thought that was so distasteful. You know, I wouldn't want to see a picture of my brother with his head blown off in a book.
Yeah, when you look at this at the end and you see what they did and what they went through, it's not cool.
What are you looking for, Eric?
I wanted to see the first time that Wheat Carr and John Carr are mentioned, and it's nothing. I don't find anything where he says I knew them. Now, that story that he was kicked out of their house might not be true, of course.
Yeah, well, everything's.
But he never said that. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say he was kicked out of the house. Somebody else.
Where did that story come from? John Paul.
Wheat.
It was Wheat Carr who
right.
said. He said that we kicked him out of the house.
Yeah. Wheat says that Maury was at the house disrespecting people in the house, and the father didn't like it and dealt with him.
And for all we know, I can't say she's lying, but she did go through a lot of hell with him, the articles and all of that. Mm-hmm. That could have been a story.
But who was right, Wheat or Maury?
Yeah, not true.
Well, when you look at this now, who was right? I mean, if you're Wheat and you're the cops, do you have tolerance for Maury?
Well, the cops won't ever have tolerance for Maury, even if he was telling the truth.
Maybe not, but like, you know, we look at like Sonati, you know, get in trouble for going out there. Do you think maybe the cops had enough of Maury and knew the answers they knew and were just getting mad at him? You know, you shouldn't be going out there helping this guy out with this nonsense. We told you before. So it's not like they're taking the gun away from Sonati because they don't want him to find out things. They're taking it away because he's contributing to a bunch of nonsense that they know is nonsense, and they're tired of even entertaining it and need him to stop.
Well, at that time, they go out. At that time, there isn't any. Berkowitz had not yet been arrested. The killings were still going on, I think. No. Berkowitz is arrested. Doesn't Sonati go out to Minot afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and he gets in trouble for that. But what I'm saying is, you know, you're looking at it. He started looking into this after the arrest, Eric.
Chinotti, no, he was looking into it even before.
Right. No, but he went to Minot after David was arrested.
Yes.
And he didn't have permission.
Right. But you see, he didn't need permission if he had only said, I'm just here to watch over my friend.
But they don't want him even bothering with this because it's not true. And you might try and look at it. They're taking his gun and punishing him because they don't want him to find out stuff, but that's not it.
No, taking the gun is in 1994 for something totally different.
Well, I'm just saying again, I'm just adding he could be annoying them in a way by not minding his business, looking into stuff they're telling him is nonsense.
Or he could be annoying them because he's disturbing.
Right. So you see how some people will get annoyed, like Wheat after a while with Maury.
Right.
I mean,
yeah, but they could say Chinotti was annoying us because we don't want anything further to be looked into here. Let's just shut it down. Politics, you're rocking the
that wasn't the case.
We don't care about the truth.
But I don't think that was the case now that all their evidence adds up. That's what I'm saying. They had the evidence in front of them that we couldn't see for years. Now we see it. And they've seen all this and seen that it was Berkowitz and only Berkowitz. And then you have a cop that won't stop like Maury.
Based on what we've read today, Eric.
Let me just answer Neo on one thing and keep your thought in mind. Maury anybody had every right he wanted to go to North Dakota and to look into things. Every right. He had every right to look into what he wanted to do. One might not care for it, but he had every right to do that. Show me where an investigator doesn't have the freedom to do that. See what I mean?
Yeah, but I'm talking about Sonati getting involved in this.
Well, that's his mind. He was a champion boxer. He left when the mob wanted him. He was supposed to face Cassius Clay. He was being trained by Marciano's people. He never lost a fight. He was known as the Hammer. And that was his energetic way, his impulsive way of going after things. And here's Anthony. The detectives didn't do identification procedures with the surviving victims or witnesses. They should have. Well, there you have it. And that could justify also Hank Chinotti. There you have Lieutenant DiMaggio. And we can't deny what Anthony is telling us.
Yeah, I'm sure Damasi and Lamino said in the DA tape when Herb said, did anyone ever show you the pictures to pick David out? And they said no.
And that's sloppy. That's very poor.
Why do you think they didn't? Do you think they were just so confident they had their man and they didn't need to?
I think they could have been confident, but my opinion, I have to be truthful. No, I think they're scum. They just wanted to cover up, get this over with, whether Berkowitz was alone or with others. That's it. It was all about politics. They can't have this going on because I could lose my job, my high officials cop job. I could lose an election, so forth and so on.
I disagree. They wasted enough money on this guy, went into complete debt because of him. He confessed. Everything they had added up.
But that's exactly it. They went into debt.
We don't want to entertain any more tips. We don't want to know because this guy was who did it, and we have everything we need on him, and he confesses to everything. They wasted a lot of money on this guy. Never mind opening it back up with the DA. There's a lot of money wasted in that. But there was a lot of money wasted trying to catch this guy. The city was bad shape.
And there we have the justification of what Lieutenant DiMaggio just told us. They wasted money also because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
But it wasn't wasted. They needed to form a task force, which they spent a ton of money on. They were hiring more police officers. You're forgetting about everything else that's going on in the Bronx, not just him and everywhere else in New York City. Okay, it was a lot of money wasted on this guy. Think about it. They have a 300-man team they formed just for him. How much money is that? Who has that?
I want to ask you something. Obviously, people were
wait, hold on. Let me just, before I go, remember all the tips coming in are taking these police officers away from their real jobs. This guy is killing the precincts and killing the law enforcement with all these tips coming in, with people trying to catch him. They needed to end this, Eric. They didn't need to cover anything up. They needed to get back to normal. They knew they had him, and that's it. Everything.
I agree with you, but then there's the other side of the coin, and that word you used, needed. They need to stop it. We don't care what the total truth is. We've got someone. That's it. He's confessed guilt. We don't look any further.
What more do you want? You got all evidence pointing to him. The letters, he's taken blame for writing the letters, taking blame for the shootings. He even knows what's in the letters.
Yes.
When they arrest him. I mean, he admits everything. What do you want? All evidence points to him, and he confesses.
He confesses, and then he retracts the confession. That's the problem.
Only after all these stories start accumulating, he's able to see the stuff. And once again, we'll talk about him being alone in prison. So he decides to go along with a lot of the stuff.
We've got Maury Terry here himself.
Wouldn't the identification procedures be considered tainted the way Savino's identification procedure is considered tainted? No, not necessarily, because we know that the procedure with Savino is tainted. There's a lot that's questioned there. That we have a lot of information of exterior forces.
No, you know what?
Directly like Wendy.
She's saying like Wendy said he seen the shooter. So didn't Lamino say that that's him too? But what she's leaving out is that Berkowitz confesses to Lamino. He doesn't confess to Wendy. Okay. So I understand pointing him out is not enough, but he confesses to doing Lamino. He doesn't confess to Wendy. Okay. So it's not tainted in that sense.
Well, you see,
he's not saying I didn't do Lamino, and we're just using Lamino's pointing out that it's him. We're not doing that. She's saying that is him, and he's saying that he shot her. So that's the difference. So it's not the same procedure.
It's very cool that Maury's joined us from beyond the grave.
It's not the same procedure, but then what comes to mind is that if somebody says, I admit I did it all, logically, somebody should want to follow up and prove it.
Why? Who would do that?
Because
who wants to?
That's your question is good. I'm not discarding.
Well, it's not who wants to go to prison for other people's actions, especially you see him get out of the army. There's only 2-3 years span between that and prison. Now, how much of a loyalty and friendship did he do with these people he's going to go down and stay in prison for the rest of his life for, and he's not going to ever say about?
All right, what I'd like to know, what answer do you give, the two of you respectively, that David Berkowitz keeps changing his story? Why? A serious answer. Why?
Because it helps him. He's not going to play games. That's why I tell you to look at who he's talking to. He's not going to play games with the real people. He can continue games. It keeps him not being alone. He gets attention from people. Someone sends you $100, right? And you're in prison, Eric. Don't you want to get it again? Humanly? You're sitting there for a while. You got no money. Oh, I can get $100 if I just play games with this person, tell them what they want to hear. Then I get attention. She might tell other people, or he might tell other people, and it starts this all up again. Next thing you know, it's an addiction for him not wanting to be alone in prison.
Yeah, I also think he can do this. Yeah, to keep people like us talking, and I think he's scared.
Right. He may want to not do this. Okay, Eric, he may want to be Christian, but humanly in prison, I can't answer for him, but I could only assume that if I had a way of not being alone in prison, I might take it here and there. Humanly, it might overcome me here and there just being in prison. That's all. I'm just trying to be real.
Yeah, no, I do not discard a word you've said. I think that could very well be the truth, but I think there's different branches to the truth. And I don't discard what you're saying because I'm not God. There's no way I can say you're wrong. But I can't take superficially different stories he gives. I can't.
But I'm giving you reasons why.
No, but I'm accepting your reasons, but for me, they're not. It's a paradox. I accept what you say because it.
Like Maury gave him life. Maury resurrected him behind bars. Did Maury mean it? I can't answer for him. I do think Maury was trying to figure something out here. And as you can see, some people really will do anything to try and prove what they think to be right, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I think that happened to him after a while. I think he started off good. And after a while, I think he again, we talk about humanly being selfish sometimes in your life when things go bad. Or
But sometimes when I look at Terry speaking to Berkowitz, I almost sometimes see a look of fright in his eyes.
I don't
know. Can
I
just say, Anthony, the link's in the chat if you want to join us.
Be nice to speak to you again.
Yeah, he always has an interesting perspective on this case.
And as far as being scared in prison, Eric, about from
no, I don't buy that, because I think if there was a fear of being killed, they would have murdered him long ago. The moment you start talking to people, they'll kill you.
But he asked Jack Jones to come in, so how scared could he be?
That's right. That's right. That's my whole point. He asked Jack Jones to come in. He chose Abrahamson. He didn't have to speak to him. He didn't have to speak to any of these people. He chose Caparelli.
But Caparelli, I don't know if he meant to do that to Caparelli or not. You know, he was very truthful with Jack Jones. I don't think he said, I'm going to pick Caparelli, have him come in. I think maybe their relationship just went that way.
Well, he read
maybe he'd seen Caparelli didn't know too much about the case.
No, he read a religious book by Caparelli.
Yeah, right. But did he say, hey, I'm going to have this guy come in and I'm going to tell him these lies? I don't know. I don't think so. I think Caparelli went in there and I think Berkowitz seen that he didn't know the case that well and started to tell him this stuff, exactly what Maury had.
We would have to listen to the 100 hours of audio tape. Just like
you want those out.
Like I want the 300 something. I don't think it's 300 hours, 300 minutes of the killer tapes. But the thing is that the incredible thing about what he tells Caparelli is that not even Maury Terry is coherent or factual about cult activities and murders the way Berkowitz is in the book, the section called The Cult, as he is with Caparelli. It's all there. Anybody who picks that book up and hasn't looked at it broad spread is going to say, wow, look at this. It's all there. The children, the disciples, the Process Church of the Final Judgment. The whole thing is there. It's incredible. The reference to people who were very high up and not high up. The whole thing is there to Caparelli.
Right. He gave the same stuff to Caparelli that he had with Maury. I told you that when I
but he had it with Maury, but Maury never forced him. Maury just said, what about this name? What about that name? David didn't have to sign an affidavit. He signs that 2-page letter with 77 names that becomes legal. He signed it. He wasn't forced to sign it. When he's being interviewed, and I have to have the time to read the 167 pages you sent me of Gilroy, that you say, Rena, you're going to be doing a show about Maury Terry cobbled that interrogation. There are areas in that interrogation where Berkowitz refuses to speak and doesn't say anything about knowing this one or that one. He refuses. So, you know.
Well, I should think he was being asked the same question 3 times in a row. And he's telling them, I don't know the cars. I don't know them. I found out about them when I moved here. There's nothing in that Gilroy deposition, Eric, that I've seen so far that would lead me to believe David had help. You know, he may have been playing a few mind games, answering questions here and there.
No, I see him very quiet there. I see him as almost like being like this. No, I don't know.
Did
No,
you know that Maury Terry had to pretend to be the lawyer's assistant in order to get in to sit in on the interview with
in,
David
in what way?
Gilroy? He had to pretend to be Gilroy's assistant.
Well, Gilroy was in agreement with that.
Yeah, because he probably couldn't have got in any other way.
And in a way, you could always technically say, well, sure, he was assisting him.
Well, he was giving Gilroy questions to ask David on his behalf.
Right. So that's not culpable on the part of Terry. He's a lawyer. He's a lawyer accepting questions from another person. What gain is?
Why didn't Maury have access to David himself?
I have no idea what historically took place there. I have no idea what historically took place
He
there.
may not have wanted to see
What
him.
What year is Gilroy?
78.
So, and according to Mr. Carl Denaro, the hours upon hours of telephone conversations between Berkowitz and Terry took place in 1979 and 1980. And you know, it makes me think of something. I didn't say this the other day. What if the informant isn't D Channel, known with the security name Lee Chase, that he doesn't want to give to Herbert Leifer? What if the informant is David Berkowitz? Did you just stop and think of that? Why we all focus on D Channel? What if, because he's having conversations with Berkowitz, he doesn't want to give Berkowitz's name to Leifer?
Anything's possible, Eric.
You see what I mean? We've always been saying D Channel, but what if it's actually Berkowitz, the informant?
Well, Maury refers she several times. I mean,
They went out to North Dakota. Nobody ever seen or talked to Berkowitz. You know what I mean? They paid all that money for the DA to open up. The DA went out there, and even with a picture, Maury or no one could ever come back with anyone saying that they seen Berkowitz in North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
It's good to see you. How are you?
I'm all right. All right. How you doing, Eric?
Oh, I'm doing fine. You're looking well.
Thank you.
What's going on,
you too, my friend. What's going on?
You've grown sideburns.
Yeah, I'm letting my hair grow a little bit.
No, here. You got sideburns.
Oh, I guess so. Yeah, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, like Elvis Presley, 1950s. I used to have them like that.
So what's up, Ant?
All right. Look, I know we've been over it before, and especially when we've spoken in private. After the Voskerichen shooting, Abe Beam gives a press conference, right? And he tells everybody in New York City, and I guess the whole country, that there's a serial killer on the loose in New York City. And from that point on, he's involved. Okay? Once the mayor, who is effectively the commander-in-chief, gets involved, he stays involved. Because the attention now paid to the case, the attention that he's brought to it, is going to affect him. And I try to explain to people that the mayor of a municipality is effectively like the president to the armed forces, right? He's the commander-in-chief. So the mayor is effectively the commander-in-chief of the police department. So when he gets involved and he tells the brass how things are going to be, they don't fight him on it. You know what I mean? They would find themselves in deep water if they did. So they don't. When Berkowitz is arrested, what do you think is the top thing on Abe Beam's mind? Well, we got to tell everybody it's over.
Yeah, but why is that a bad thing? Why is there scrutiny?
What was that last thing you said? What was on Beam's mind?
Yeah, well, look, he was behind in the polls. He was up for re-election. He was behind the polls by double digits. And he wanted to put it to bed, you know. Now, that doesn't mean that they really thought, oh, maybe there's other people out there at the time. They probably did believe that they had the guy. They probably believed it was one guy all along. And then when
they right?
They just didn't do things by the numbers.
But wait, were they right?
Well, it seems so. Yeah, it seems.
Yeah. So what is? You guys want to waste more money?
No, no. It's the money had been wasted. Those are all sunk costs. It's not going to cost a great deal of more money to do things by the numbers starting at that point. You see, when they catch him, that's when the real investigation begins.
All right. So wait, hold on a minute. Okay. So they may have thought that, opened back up the DA, put the money in that, came up with nothing. That's what you guys wanted. That's what you got.
Well, what I'm saying is they should have just, done things by the numbers and gotten them ID'd by the people who gave descriptions of the shooter at the scene, either the victims that survived or the witnesses. That would have put all this to bed. We wouldn't be here podcasting about it now. If they'd actually done that and all these people said, oh yeah, that's him. If they just picked Berkowitz out of a lineup or a photo array, like Rena was saying with Lamino and Demacia, if they had done all that, and everybody picked Berkowitz, this would be over with. There would be no ultimate evil.
In fact, Rena, listen to what Anthony just said. You have questioned, as everyone has. Neo has, Paul Hart, others. Why wasn't everything done by the book with the Wendy Savino shooting case? So use that analogy with the Son of Sam case. Why was it not done by the book?
What wasn't done by the book?
Well, it was just explained by Anthony.
Well, what's that? Not looking into something they had all the answers for?
No, they didn't do
wait, but I'm proving to you and showing you they did what you asked them to do. And I understand it wasn't at the time of the arrest or whatever, but I mean, that came up with absolutely nothing. So what do you think what do you want them to do? What do you guys want after the arrest when this guy confesses, all evidence pointing to him? What do you want them to do? You want them to go looking for people when he's saying it was me?
Proper identifications have to be presented, even if the man says,
They were proper. You had the people he shot saying it was him. Again, I know that's not enough, but he's admitting they're right.
No, that was way later, though, after he was already paraded in front of the cameras and they had already charged him and all that. I mean, they didn't do any ID procedures that night. They didn't. We all know that.
What do you mean, no? What do you mean?
So it was already after they had spoiled
correct. But he admits
he admits
what they're saying.
I get it. But
so that is the clincher. If he didn't admit to what they were saying, then you don't have a positive identification.
Yes, in a normal situation where it wasn't so high profile, they will do ID procedures just to make their case that much stronger. But in a case where they want everybody to believe that it's over.
So that's what they messed up, the perp walk after the arrest?
Oh yeah, 1,000%. You're not supposed to do that.
I know they messed up, but in all actuality, is it a mess up? I mean, yes, because you can't get the positive identification. But I mean, can you show me anything?
Here's my point. My point is very simple. As far as all of the speculation about other people being involved, they could have put it to bed right then and there that night. If people would have just ID'd them before they ruined the identification procedures by marching them in front of the camera.
And you say they ruined. I mean, the press is all over like swarming bees.
Yeah, but they caught him in Yonkers. No one really knew anything. They didn't have to perp walk them. Even if the press knows, even if the press somehow it gets leaked to them,
obviously.
Yeah, if they leak it and they say we think we have the guy,
they knew he was coming there. Somehow it leaked out. They knew what do you want them to do at that point?
No. What I'm saying is,
well, I guess they could have covered him. I guess
the press. Yeah, right. The press could have found out and reported it all. They think they have the guy, all this and that, but you don't have to parade him in front of the cameras. They did that on purpose. They did that for political reasons.
Yeah, you think that.
And in the process, they threw away the identification procedures. They just threw them away. They said, "Fine, he's admitting it. We got the gun. We don't want to muddy things up by showing his face either in a lineup or in a photo array to the victims and the witnesses. And God forbid they don't hop all over it and say, "Oh yes, that's 100% him."
So you think they purposely showed him?
Yes, absolutely,
definitely. Why Santucci couldn't believe it that they took him to a jail, a precinct, a center in New York County, which is the city of Manhattan, and no crimes were committed there. They paraded him there.
And I might have to agree with you on that, because they could have covered him at the least.
On the same token,
so they do that on purpose. I can't. I don't have an opinion toward that.
Same token, by taking him to New York County where no murders were committed, it could be that they said, well, let's take him to New York County because they were committed in Queens County, Kings County, and Bronx County. So, how do you, if we take him to Queens, well, why not Kings? If in Kings, why not Bronx? So that could be neutral. But the main thing that Anthony brings out, which is repulsive, is parading him in front of the cameras. You're just enhancing what the newspapers, what the yellow press was feeding on.
Yes.
Of everything. I mean, look,
they were very happy to catch him too. They really knew they had their man, and they were really excited to show the public that too. Possibly.
Do you know how many newspapers were being sold more because of this case? And it's all comes down to what's best for me monetarily. Even Wendy Savino said that. She said Son of Sam was everywhere, and then it's nowhere on the front page because Elvis Presley dies.
Right. Yeah. So, and look, I've been in on these conversations a lot of times in police circles. If you think that the higher ranking people in the police department, and then go even higher, you get up to City Hall. If you don't think that they're putting politics first all the time, well, you're just wrong. I mean, they do. They put politics first. It's always politics. He's behind in the polls. He's got a re-election bid that's not really going well. They want the celebration started. We got him where at the very least, we know he's involved. We know he's a primary guy. Is there more people? Well, who knows? We'll get to that later. For now, get the party started. Get him out in front of the cameras. All right, I want to climb back in these polls. The brass want people to leave them alone because they look like idiots because this guy's doing this and taunting them for months or over a year, and they're not catching them. They don't even know, like, they have no leads at all, nothing solid, that they're not even close to getting them. Then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they check the parking tickets and they got them. It's all over. So get the party started. Now, the risk they're taking is if he had an accomplice or multiple accomplices, and we go out and we tell everybody.
I agree on that.
Yeah, and if we go out and we tell everybody it's all over, we got them, and then in 3 weeks, another 44 caliber shooting happens with a couple of kids sitting in a car. Well, then we really look like idiots. But you already look like idiots, so take the risk. That's the way they see it. A-Beam's already behind 11 points in the polls. All right, if something like that happens and it just buries his campaign, well, that's a risk he's willing to take because it's the only way he's going to climb back is to go out and say, look, it's all over with. Everybody go to sleep.
But it was, though, too. You got to remember that.
Right. But that night, they don't know that. They're taking a risk. They're throwing away the ID procedures.
I agree with you on that. I do.
Anthony,
because you don't know. There could have been.
Legally, Anthony, I brought this point up. Legally, Ed Zigo and the guy who was actually, they say they were arresting Officer Falocito, Joe Falocito, the one on the left with the white hair. It was illegal for them to go into the car without a search warrant, or legal. Seeing a weapon that's not allowed in New York. and then how do you judge Cacace giving the search warrant after already the location was searched? What do you say about that?
So, well, with search warrants, it's not like it is in the movies. There's always a lot of gray area. This is where the lawyers make their money, So, what's really supposed to happen? I gave Neo a couple of different scenarios, a couple of different ways it can play out. Okay, one thing they can do is, you see, whenever you're going to go into somebody's car or apartment or something without a warrant and seize a weapon or some other evidence, you have to explain why it was really necessary, like an emergency situation, to go in and do it without a warrant. Okay, because what you're supposed to do is when you know there's evidence in a certain place, a car, somebody's home or something like that, you're supposed to. You can knock on the door. You can tell everybody's got to get out of the apartment or the car or whatever it is, and you just basically secure it and you put cops there, make sure no one goes into it, and you go to the judge and you get the warrant. In certain cases, you can do it without a warrant. If
emergency,
emergency.
Emergency?
Yes, an emergency, or if there's possibly a victim that needs to be saved, or if there's an immediate danger. So they see a gun in the back seat of his car, they can pretty easily justify getting into the car however they did, and maybe taking the gun. But just because they neutralize that that immediate danger, that doesn't give them the reason that they want to go searching through the rest of the car, opening the glove box, looking under the seats, all that stuff. Not really. For that, they have to hold the car, put cops there, make sure no one goes near it, and go get the warrant. Did they do that? Well, it was 1977. There was no cameras around. Almost certainly not. As soon as they saw that car, they went ripping through it like there was a.
They had a lot of leads to the car at that point. A lot. The letters, Craig's letters, Sam's letters.
Oh, I mean, at that point, they knew that they had their guy. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that they knew.
I can understand, and I'm not trying to break the law. I could even understand them immediately rushing in to the car because of the pressure that was on them. In fact, I'm told that Ed Zigo suffered very much. His wife even passed away while investigating this case. It became obsessive for many of them. There was a lot of pressure upon them.
Sure.
And even after the case was solved, Zigo, as I was told, a family member, father was detected with Zigo. Zigo might not like his friend who was doing the Black Panthers. He could have gone with the son of Sam. Might not have totally been convinced that Berkowitz was the only one and that the case had not been properly done entirely. In other words, what's presented to us is different from what's not known.
Right. And hold on. In a court of law, I think that the police would have got away with entering the car under the emergency of this. I think they would have been able to explain that. And again, we see him when he goes up there, he goes into the car and then he tries to get the warrants before he comes out. They're trying to, back up what they're about to do. They can't wait for him. He goes and gets the warrants. But I definitely think if this did go into the court, I think they would have been able to explain emergency of going into the car.
Yeah. Right. So
and I think they would have got away with that.
The extremely high profile nature of the case is going to give the cops a lot of leeway.
I've sure explained.
But also, hold on again. I want to point out.
Found the weapon that they saw. Somebody explained to me that there was a law that if they see a weapon that is illegal in New York.
How do they know it's illegal?
Well, they know
because it turned out to be a legal gun, which they arrested him for an illegal gun, which wasn't. So how do they know that
legal gun?
Huh?
I was told that gun that they saw, was it the rifle?
They said it was a machine gun, but it was not. It was a registered semi-automatic to Berkowitz.
And that's wrong information given, that because it was an illegal arm, they had a right to go in without a search.
How are they going to know it's an illegal weapon from the outside? And again, hold on before I get carried away with this. It doesn't matter him breaking into the car. If it goes to the court, fine. You can withhold the evidence that was in the car, the gun and the letters if you want. Remember, he came outside the apartment with the .44. That's the gun they needed to go against him with the murders. So, again, if you want to say he broke into the car illegally, take the evidence and you can go home with it. It doesn't matter. The .44 was in his possession on the way out. He even admitted that. That's all they needed. I talked to Geis about this. He straightened this out with me a lot, and that's the correct way to explain it.
Yeah.
I got to leave for a minute. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Okay. The legality or illegality of the gun is irrelevant. If they see a gun in plain view in his back seat when they go to get him, basically, they can go in and they can neutralize that gun. They can basically go and take that gun out of the back seat. Why? Because, like I said, this is where the lawyers make their money. They're going to be able to explain that this person this car was at the scene of the most recent Son of Sam homicide.
Red flag it. Yep.
Right. We called up to Yonkers. We spoke to a dispatcher who knows him personally, said he's completely out of his mind. All right. So he's a suspect at this point.
Yeah.
Possibly a very, very
they thought
violent
it was
individual.
him before this, and now they're getting that his car was at the last shooting. I mean, come on, you got a lot
that's
of
the
things
easier
pointing to
part.
him when they come up here.
The going into the back seat to get the gun that they see, that's very easy. That's very easy to justify.
Right.
Where it gets murkier is
the glove compartment letters, right?
Is everything else in the car, because just going in and getting that car so that he can't come out and grab it and start firing is, that doesn't give them the right. And again, this is where the lawyers make their money, but it's not really supposed to give them the right to search the rest of the car for a 44 or for anything else. At that point, after they get that gun out of the way, they're, technically.
Yellowstone says here, but does it not give them probable cause at that point? Or do you just need probable cause to go and get the warrants?
Probable cause is for the warrant. You have to establish probable cause, why the judge should sign off on the warrant and give it to you so you can go search whatever area you applied to search. So you can, under exigent circumstances, you can dispense with needing probable cause to go to the judge.
So probable cause doesn't give an officer at the scene enough to go in. Probable cause.
No, the standard is higher.
No, probable cause is just what he's handing in to get the warrant.
No, right.
Okay.
Right. So to search without a warrant, the standard is much, much higher than probable cause. It's exigent circumstances. Like I always use the comparison in the OJ case, right? So they go and they find his wife and Ron Goldman dead, butchered. They go to his house. They said it was to make notification. That's what they have to say. In my mind, he was the main suspect from the beginning. But this is the way they justify it. We went to his house to make notification. We saw blood drops on the perimeter of the property, like on the street right in front of the house. Okay, now OJ had a big wall around his house, around his property. So at that point, they see blood, and they hop the wall, and they go, and they're looking for him. They're ringing the doorbell. When it later went to trial, his dream team tried to have the glove that Furman found and a couple of other things thrown out because they said there was no search warrant. They had no reason. They had no right to hop that wall. Okay. And the judge denied that, Ito. He said, no, that's nonsense, because what the prosecution argued was these cops just found his wife and some other dude dead a few blocks away. They come to the house, they see blood on the street in front of his property. Okay. They have to get inside and find him and make sure he's not bleeding to death in the backyard or on a couch inside the house. Exigent circumstances. If he's inside dying, we don't have time to go get a search warrant. We got to get in and try to save his life. Okay. Once they found the daughter, and the daughter called him, and he was alive in Chicago, hold the scene. We got to get out of here. They tell the daughter to get out. They tell Kato Kalin get out. They get all the people off the property, and they go to the judge to get the search warrant. Now they can search the whole house. Okay, because now he's a suspect. He's alive. But there's blood here. Now he's cross him off the victim, the potential victim list. Okay, he's not a victim. So where did this blood come from? Well, it must be theirs. Now he's a suspect. So now you got to go to the judge and get the warrant. Your exigent circumstances are over. He's alive. There's no emergency here. So you got to go apply for a warrant. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So, but again, if you watch baseball, you know how they say the count affects the strike zone? Like if it's a 3-0 count, he can pitch one way off the plate, and I was probably going to call it a strike. It's the same thing with the high-profile nature of the case. The judge is going to give the cops a lot of leeway. There's a really, really, really bad dude. He's going around killing innocent people. He's making international headlines. So the idea that the judge is going to toss evidence on a technicality is very low. Especially back then when there was no cameras or anything like that.
Yeah, was it different times back then than there is now, obviously?
Do you know of any detective that would not have went into that car?
Back then, no.
I'm saying you're a detective. You go up to the car. You're Zigo. I mean, are you not going in that car?
No, yeah, I'm dude.
And the correct thing
they
is
ripped that
just
car
to
apart.
watch it and have it, watched, and then go get the right paperwork, of course. But this was a one-on-one situation, I feel, and there is no right way to act sometimes from a cop's job, and it's all spontaneous sometimes, and that's what this was. People should be happy that they got him, and there wasn't any mistakes made. This wasn't not the Son of Sam, and you put him through hell, and it wasn't even him. This was not a mistake. Everything adds up. I don't know what there would be complaints about. You look at this from the end on in. What are you complaining about? These cops had a job to do and did it.
And if you watch the news, they're going through a lot of this same type of stuff with this Luigi Mangione case. In the pretrial hearings, the defense is trying to get evidence thrown out that they found in his backpack. The gun that he used to do that murder, a couple of other things I forget. But the defense is trying to say, oh, well, no, this is inadmissible because they didn't have a search warrant. And the prosecution is arguing basically exigent circumstances. First of all, the guy could have a bomb in his bag. We're here trying to arrest him, and there's a bag sitting right there.
Right.
If he's the guy we're looking for who just sat and wait all night out on a Manhattan street and shot a guy that he doesn't even know in the back on the sidewalk when he walked by, then he's a very dangerous guy. We have no idea what's in this bag. And then, so we searched it to make sure it was safe, and we found the gun. That gun is going to get admitted. No doubt in my mind.
Right.
But again, this is where the lawyers make their money. They got to argue about this stuff. Was the law followed? That night, it almost certainly was not followed, but it's not, it's just, there's not going to be a beef about it in a high profile case like that.
Well, if it wasn't the Son of Sam, there'd be a big lawsuit, but it was.
Right.
Well, I mean, how do you give him any rights?
Look, they did go get a search warrant. And they did get a search warrant.
Yeah, they went, they got everything done. But I think that was just to back up maybe their actions because, there's different stories from a lot of the cops. So you see they don't know what to say. They don't want to rat each other out on what the officers there wanted. So like you see the Yonkers cops don't really detail what happened too much. They let them, so they say, I think the warrant that they got was trying to back up because I don't think they knew what story they were going to put in at that point, but they wanted to try and have as much legal procedure as they could. And again, Berkowitz was up in the apartment when he got fed up, Zigo, and went back to get the papers. He was going to get that warrant because they were fed up waiting for him, and they were going to go in and get him. And unfortunately, while he was getting the papers, Berkowitz came out.
Yeah.
And again, the car was already broken into, and they told the judge the whole situation. And the judge wasn't really cool with just signing. Because, when you hand these papers to the judge, he's got to look at everything and make sure that he's certain what he's handing you back to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And they already had him in custody. And we're trying to tell the judge he's already in custody, he admitted to everything. So the judge was kind of forced to sign it because they needed that sign so they could get in the apartment, take all the stuff, and then go down to New York. So, again, was the judge wrong? No, because there was no mistake about this guy. And procedure had to be kept as much as possible. And he signed a warrant. Was it a mistake he signed a warrant? No, that's Son of Sam. You need to get his stuff. Yeah. Okay, so if there was a mistake, you could have a gripe in a sense at the end of this, but it wasn't a mistake at all.
Another way they can justify it is to say, look, he's at this point, he's a prime suspect. The car's at the scene. We get this information about him. He's deranged. Okay, he's a loner. He's a prime suspect. We don't want to go up to his apartment and try to take him there. It could turn into a firefight. We want to let him come outside and catch him by surprise. But before we do that, we want to make sure that there's no weapons inside the car. Okay, because if somehow he gets into the car before we can grab him, then he's going to have access to a weapon.
Right. You right.
So that's
right. You
one
could
way
have
you
said
can.
that in court too. Now, Anthony, that you seen the gun in there and you needed to get it out for when he came out. You didn't want it in the car when he came out to the car. You could.
But yeah, but what I'm saying is, if you were going to get away with going one step further and searching the whole car, that could be the reason that you give. You could say, we got to do a stakeout and wait for him to come outside.
Go ahead.
So we can take him with as minimal risk of a shootout as possible. So he might have a gun on him. Nothing we can do about that. It's a risk we got to take. But we can make sure that there's no gun for him to reach for inside the car when he comes out.
Right. Good point.
That's right. That's the way they could justify it.
I think everything you say is logically coherent. All the 3 points you brought out about this, but I still think politics and the rush to solve this case and to get it over with played a part in that also. Because look, at that same time, I can't give the woman's name. This woman was a street girl. She frequented the Magical Child. Her brother here in Nassau County had a knife shoved into his abdomen, I think at Rockville Center. And he was murdered. The man murdered him. But why did they throw the case out? Because they read him his rights in English and not in Spanish. Now, what I'm trying to get at is you have right there bloodshed, and they throw it out because a ruling was not carried through that he should be read his rights in Spanish and not English because he didn't know English.
Again, do you think the cops wanted this to happen to him because of maybe some slight mistakes they made trying to catch this 101 serial killer? Do you mean? I know what you're saying, what you're pointing out. That's right. You're right. But
I mean, look at how serious that is right there. If Anthony, let me put it to you this way. Let's say they followed the rules and they did get a search warrant. What difference do you think might have happened with the case? They would have still arrested Berkowitz. No, don't you think so? They were at his home.
Nothing. And would you like Berkowitz to get out on technicalities with some of this stuff? If you think there were mistakes made by the police here, would you like that Berkowitz in a court of law might be getting out? Would you like that?
Okay, I'm alive in 1977.
Over a mistake that a police officer is not trying to make. He's trying to protect you and do his job and get this serial killer out of the way. And
I have two answers. I'm putting myself back in 1977. But what I also know is how many people who are innocent are jailed in this country, and the proper procedures are not carried out. Things are based just on circumstantial evidence, which for me is nothing unless you can actually prove the actual evidence. So in 1977, yeah, I would want him out. But today, if I look at him and say, no, I don't want the guy out, because I know what he's done. I know what he's admitted to. So it's a paradox. But I think that if law enforcement followed everything scientifically according to police science and were loyal to their oaths, as this gentleman was, things would be solved better. They wouldn't say, well, it's money, it's politics, the press. Look how weak they are. The press writes about them and they crumble. Why? Because the people will then say, supposedly, well, you got to get him out of office. He doesn't do his duty well. They don't stop to reason about what it takes to investigate, that it can't be just from one day to the next. A crime is committed and the next day you solve it.
Right. Yeah. So let me just sum it up this way. When it comes to arrest situations, at the scene of an arrest and during the time of an arrest, cops get a lot of leeway as far as searches, because they got to make sure everything is safe. They got to make sure there are no weapons within reach. It's not so much about looking for incriminating evidence. Okay, during an arrest situation, it's especially when the person is accused of extremely violent crimes. There's always a lot of leeway involved for the police for the search. Now, you can't go hours after the arrest and just go to his apartment and say, all right, we arrested him, now we're going to search. That's not the way it works. But within the immediate area of the arrest and within close proximity in time to the arrest, yeah, the cops get a lot of leeway. They get a lot of leeway. Nothing was ever going to happen as far as, the Son of Sam case being dismissed on a technicality. That wasn't ever going to happen. Just never going to happen. Given the nature of the crimes and
no, and I think
the
some
incredible
of the
danger involved in trying to arrest someone.
Some of the work they did, some of the statements they made were so that he couldn't. If they slightly didn't follow procedure in some way, and you see them lying, they're not so much lying to cover up themselves. It's they don't want this guy getting free on maybe a mistake they made. Again, is a mistake bad? Yeah, they got to follow procedure. But then again, this guy is what he is. So why are you giving him that? It was
judges
a tough
worry
job
about how
to
they're
do
going
this
to be
one.
perceived.
Do you understand that this was a tough one? There hasn't been someone like this guy in 50 years. I think we can bend some things that happen with this case. It wasn't easy. Right. I just don't see any intent by the police at all to cover anything up. If they, again, I'm pointing out here, if they were trying to cover up anything they did, it was more so that this guy couldn't get off for you, not so much for them, because they're mistakes. They don't mean to not do their job right. They were trying to handle this guy the best that they could.
But you see, I'm not criticizing the police necessarily. I'm criticizing maybe the higher ups in the police, those who are in charge of the detectives and the simple law enforcement officer. Those people I'm criticizing.
Yeah, left to their own device, the detectives, the boots on the ground, probably would have done things the right way as far as identification procedures and whatnot. They probably would have. Yeah, but what the brass is worried about, what the brass and the mayor are worried about, is uncertainty during the identification procedures. As far as they're concerned, we found the gun. We got the guy who's saying he did it all. Don't make things complicated for us right now. Right? We're all teed up to end this and start the celebration. Don't make things complicated by introducing, uncertainty during the identification process. You sit down Lomino and she says, "Well, that kind of looks like him, but I'm not 100% sure." That's gonna muddy things up. That's what they were trying to avoid because they wanted to celebrate.
I can't agree with you the way you see it. I don't think that, but I can see. Yeah. I mean, you can be right. I personally think at this point the media was at a different stage, and I think they bum rushed that and really just it made a circus out of it, which is why this guy was laughing. People forget they see him arrested and he's smiling. He should have seen what was going on around him. But
yeah, and it could also be.
I see your point of view. It's a good point of view, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like I said,
when do you think they should have showed him, man? When do you think they should have waited to show David to the public?
He's right. After
they did some ID procedures, it would have taken like a few hours. It wouldn't have taken too long. They could have hit him a little longer. Put him in some lineups like you see in movies, a bunch of dudes standing next to each other.
Yeah, he was like a trophy, him and the gun. Against
a white wall. I even saw one time, we arrested a guy who did a homicide on Willow Street in Yonkers. We found him hiding out with a friend of his on the rooftop of a building right across the street from where he did the homicide. And we brought him down to the detective division, and in a bit of a rush to get people that looked like him, they actually threw a couple of cops in the lineup.
Wow.
Really? They threw they threw black sweatpants and sweatshirts on everybody.
Now, is that
including a couple of cops?
Not supposed to happen because, I mean, can you do that? Is there anything wrong with that? I mean, you're just trying to fill space with some faces.
Yeah, no, there's no rule against it. You have to.
Hopefully, one of the cops doesn't get pointed out by accident, right?
Well, I mean, if you know that if that happens, then it's just a bad ID, But
right.
But yeah, I mean, there are guidelines for doing those procedures, and no, there are really no, not that I can remember, there are no restrictions on who you can put in there, but the guidelines call you have to pick people who look pretty similar to the suspect, right?
Right.
You know, you can't have if the suspect is a white male, you can't have, you know, a bunch of black guys and Mexican guys in the lineup with the only white guy, because it looks like you're trying to make him stand out to the
Yes.
witness. You know what I mean? So you don't want it to look like you're trying to make him stand out. You're supposed to pick people that look pretty similar to him. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's one thing, you know, you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to try to contact the suspect's attorney to let him be present. You don't have to wait. You give him a reasonable amount of time to come down there and participate, but you don't have to wait. You're just supposed to let him know and give him a chance.
He
you know,
waived
stuff like
those,
that.
I think.
Huh?
He waived that. I'm pretty sure they all, before speaking to him, all read him his rights, and he.
Yeah. No, I'm just talking
present.
about, like, if you're going to do a lineup, you're supposed to let the suspect's attorney know that you're doing a lineup and give him a chance to be present.
All right.
You know, you don't have to put it off. If he says, "Hey, listen, I can't get there until Tuesday or Saturday or, you know, whatever, just wait for me." No, you don't have to wait. You give him a few hours and then you do it. So there are these guidelines that are involved, but they're not that hard to throw together. Photo arrays, anything. They should have just let these people ID him and put all of this 50 years worth of speculation to bed. Because if they had ID'd him, nobody has any grounds to be writing any books about other suspects or anything like that. You made the case airtight against David Berkowitz.
Right.
Anthony, why do you think David's still playing mind games in 2025?
Because he's a piece of shit. That's what I think personally. I can't stand the guy. I mean, I can't stand that he gets so much attention.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree.
He's a screwball. He's really not to be taken seriously in any way, shape, or form. Nothing that comes out of his mouth has any value. And I just wish people would stop, you know, entertaining him.
Right.
Yeah, he's a loser.
Yeah. I agree.
You know what I mean? That's what I feel about him.
I think
Not
a lot
fan
of
at
people
all.
will agree with you, Ant.
Huh?
I think a lot of people will agree with you there.
Yeah,
The
I
way
mean,
you-
So much havoc.
you know, you if you go to YouTube and you type his name, and all types of videos come up. So I remember I did that one time, and it was like a recent interview with him. They weren't showing the person he was talking to, or if he was even talking to a person. He was just kind of talking. It looked like he was talking to somebody because he was looking off to the side of the camera, but he was talking about his life, like he said, and he's got this big smile on. And he's like, I don't want to talk about the crimes themselves. Okay,
Yeah.
there's plenty out there on that. You can go read about that, but I'm going to talk about me and my life and my upbringing. It's like, dude, nobody gives a shit, dude.
I felt disgusted when I saw that Christian one, and there's this little piano music, and he goes, "Oh well, you know, I remember what it was to walk by the canal and the bicycle rides and the picnics. You know, it all turned out for the best." What are we, crazy? That's pseudo-Christianity. Before the Second Vatican Council, the Catholic Church still had the death penalty on the books. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're getting late here too on the arena again, right? Might have to.
Thank you, Neo.
I might have to
just
wrap
sat
this
here
up.
and let you talk for another hour.
Yeah, no,
All right. I said my piece. I said what I wanted to come on and say.
You know, we'll have other times.
It's good to see you, Anthony. And
this has been a fascinating show, I must admit.
Anthony, I think I might be able to find Larry Ziegel. I'm looking, and so if I come up with something, I'll tell you.
I'm going to do some more research to see if I can trace the identity of Larry Siegel or anybody close to him.
Yeah.
In Maury's files or even ChatGPT might help me out.
All right, have fun.
Well, I hope we all meet up today.
Thank you for joining us, Ant.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Get Maury.
Thank you as always, Eric.
I will, Eric.
I'll see you guys soon. Be good. Everybody be good.
Back.